Okay, and it looks like we're live here. So hello everybody, it's Adam Farkas here. Let me get the screen going for you here. There we go. And hey everybody, it's Adam again. Thank you for coming out here to the 2020 Virtual Optometric Summit, and it's actually great to be here today. You may notice just by looking around that, if you're seeing behind me, you can see that nobody's here. I'm here all by myself today, and it's a little bit different than usual. Usually when we do these live streams, I have my father Paul with me, or I have Gretchen Bailey. There's a cast of thousands here, but unfortunately today, it's just me. And obviously that's because of what's going on around the country with COVID-19 and people not being able to travel. Out here in Portland, we've been told to shelter in place now for days. I've actually been here at home in the studio here for, I don't know, a week, 9 days. And so Paul, who's usually with me, couldn't make it out here. We felt it best that he stay home. We obviously couldn't observe the 6 foot distance and everything else, so there was no reason to sort of risk him out here. But thank you for showing up here today. It's nice to actually get back to a normal pace here, sort of feeling like things are somewhat normal, even if they're not, being able to be here with you today and at the summit. So before we get started on the summit, let me just show you some stuff here. As you know, I always have slide decks for us to show and talk about. This show today is a little bit different from ones that we've done in the past. Besides the fact that I'm here alone, the summit itself, was put together just as a way so you could have some content to watch. We know that everyone's stuck at home, and so we put together 10 really great lectures for you today. And so just sort of what's happening today. If you're watching this on ODwire, by the way, and you haven't signed up for the summit, go over to the vos2020.com site and sign up. It's free. And you can come in and watch all these lectures today. So we have 10 hours of lectures, an exhibit hall with white papers and other educational content. So the exhibit hall is not strictly commercial, right? It's, most people aren't really in a buying mood right now. So if you come on in and look, you'll see there's also white papers just talking about the latest technology. Again, there's interactivity. You're going to be able to interact with other people at the event via chat windows, and also the speakers will be available by chat too. And we're going to be doing a bunch of interviews today with the different speakers and other folks as well. Hopefully have some special guests drop in too. Just a couple more comments here before I get the phone lines open. Today's lectures at the summit, I've been asked this now literally 50 times over the past 2 days. People have been emailing me. There's no COPE credit for today's lectures. So the lectures today are just for your information. And that has to do with the way COPE accredits CE, and we'll get into that later if we have more time. I'll explain the whole process and why some things are able to be credited and some are not. So at the lectures today, none of these are for COPE credit. If you need COPE credits, again, we're still running CEwire, that's running, and due to a change that ARBO has recently made, a temporary change due to the coronavirus, the 60 credits that you can get at CEwire will be the same as live. They're going to be marked on your transcript as live credits. So if you need credits, you might just want to go over to CEwire and check it out. And again, we're going to talk a little bit more about that today as well. But I'd also, before we start talking to folks, I'd like to thank Zeiss for sponsoring today's event. We could not have put all this together without them. They were a driving force behind it. And so thank you to Zeiss. Definitely go check out the exhibit hall and see what they're doing there today. We're going to learn a lot more about their products in the course of the day and in the lectures that we have set up for you as well. I'd also like to thank Covalent Careers. So they were our partners in crime here, getting all of this stuff set up. If you've never been to Covalent Careers site, they are the premier job site in eye care, hands down the best in terms of if you're looking for staff or you're looking for a new position, it's the place to go. But what a lot of people don't realize about them also is that they generate incredible content. If you go to their website, it's not just a job site, right? You're not just going to monster.com or something. They have really great eye care specific content up on their site, and they generate it all themselves. And many of the lectures that you're going to see today were actually produced by Covalent over the past week or two. So it's been a really huge effort getting all this stuff together. So thanks to them for coming in and doing that. It's really been a lot of fun working with them over the past several days. Now, I said that I was alone, but that's a semi lie, right? Because when you have tech, you're never really alone, right? So I have on the line with me today, we're doing it a little bit differently. As you know, usually we have one person call in and it's just one at a time, right? But today we have an actual conference line in because I wanted to have multiple people coming on and speaking with us today. And so who do I have for us today? Well, on the line right now should be Paul Farkas and Steve Silberberg. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi, how you doing, Ed?
I'm hanging in there.
Here. Yep.
So,
I have something to do.
yeah, I know, right? I mean, I feel like I'm going out of my mind being trapped here. It's
For one, as the resident technophobe,
Yep.
I don't have a picture of your screen up. What am I missing?
So if you go to the ODwire.org site on the main page or on the Livestream page, you'll see that there's actually the top story, if you go right up to the top, is this live stream. And it should start automatically. If it doesn't, just hit the play button and then it'll start.
You could also go into the conference call.
Ah, there you are. Okay, there you go.
Yep.
All right, for us other ignoramuses.
Well, you know, it's considered bad form to just start streaming video without asking people's permission by hitting the play button. So that's why it's done that way. So.
Bad form. Who the hell knows about bad form?
Well, sorry. So you know, I have you guys on the line here, and I got Steve Silberberg. I just put up his picture as well, so everyone can remember what he looks like, and Paul, so everyone remember what you look like. So guys, so Paul, it's been funny. I haven't actually seen you in person now for quite a while.
Yeah, pretty good. Your hair hasn't grown that much.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about that actually. I'm like, it's been a long time since I could get a haircut, but yeah, it just hasn't grown that much. Are you looking like Santa Claus now? What's going on?
But you know, if you had a beard, you'd see. I had to do some shearing. I felt like I was a sheep trying to get the beard off. I thought I'd be on live with you today, but when you said don't come over, I was so happy.
My wife was threatening to use a bowl for my head in about a week or two, so we'll see that work.
Gosh. Well,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you guys are healthy otherwise, and everything's going okay. You know, I think the biggest problem I think a lot of the folks are having, at least from what I've been reading on CEwire, is just being idle, right? The whole idea that you can't even go into your office. It's got to be really frustrating for a lot of folks, and you know, a little bit scary probably with the uncertainty.
Well, with all the material on ODwire, I don't know how you can be idle. I can't catch up. Listening to everyone. You know, we did invite some people if they want to speak with us from ODwire. Hopefully later in the day we'll have some optometrists on.
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully.
One of the other challenges people have now is to decide what to do with their practices, whether to lay off their staff, whether to try to get the loans, etc. And the playing field is not that clear. So hopefully,
you know, one very interesting thing is that we're going to be doing a webinar on Sunday evening with Craig.
That'd be great.
Our resident lawyer. Adam, why don't you tell them the topic?
Yeah, so that's going to be not this Sunday, but the Sunday after. So this is all going to be about private equity. And when we put the lecture together, you know, Craig's an expert. He's actually negotiated some of these deals on behalf of doctors. And it's funny, when we put the talk together, none of this had happened with the virus, right? So the environment we were in was totally normal. And now, of course, things have changed. And Craig is going to give us an update, not only on, you know, how to get the best deal when you're negotiating this, but also talking about what the coronavirus has done to these private equity firms, right? Because, you know, the way private equity works, a lot of them are loaded up with debt, right? And they use the cash flow generated by the offices to service that debt. And suddenly, you know, that's all disappeared. So what does that mean for them? And other private equity firms may have no debt at all, right? They may be sitting on a wad of cash. Well, for them, you know, what are they thinking? Are they just going to come in and scoop everything up? So it's an interesting discussion.
Yeah, so he'll be talking about how to manage the bottom feeders. So if you feel that your practice is vulnerable, Craig is there to give you advice as well.
Right.
It's probably the best $100 you'll ever spend.
Yeah. So he's
if you want to come on with him.
Yeah. I mean, he's seen it all, especially around eye care. So, and he understands what each of the groups is all about. And by the way, just for equal airtime, I've invited Ben Chudner to come on and talk as well. You know, when we started doing this, everyone just said invite your friends. So there I go, inviting my friends. So Ben is in private equity. He's on the other side of these transactions, and I wanted to get his take on what's going on with each firm because he knows better than anyone, right? I'm sure he's going to be under a huge amount of stress, but he still agreed to come on and do it probably tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to be able to hear from him. So that'll be pretty cool.
From him, but not on Craig's webinar.
No, not on Craig's webinar. Just tomorrow on the live stream, just informal us chatting because that's always fun. So he's always good to talk to because he gives it to you straight whether you want to hear it or not. So that's why I like speaking with Ben.
To take everybody's interest in next year's CWire 2021, as we call it, Craig and Brad are going to speak together. So they'll be in the same video, same room, and so we'll get both sides of the equation. It should be pretty interesting.
It'll be funny. It'll be like a steel cage match.
Hey, what's going on? I just noticed also the incredible number of registrations on ODwire that just happened between now and 8:01.
Well, we went
I
live.
think
So
people that are coming on here are now going on to ODwire. The ones that are coming. But by the way, you mentioned the other day that you have you had about 1,700 registered for this particular seminar.
Yep.
I assume it's even more than that now.
I think it's close to 2,000, possibly over. I haven't looked this morning. I was too frantic setting everything up here on my own. But yeah, it's
so basically this is probably some sort of record for online people attending a meeting. Can you imagine 2,000 people in a meeting hall?
right. Well, CEwire has drawn over 3,000 before, but certainly for a Zeiss event, this is the biggest we've ever done for sure. So yeah, it's pretty neat. Pretty neat. So we have a call actually. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talk.
No.
In the first room, the first lecture on keratoconus, there's 300 people in the room now, and they're interacting. So it's early in the day, so it should get worse.
Right. And so one more thing before, we have our first interview coming up here with the folks from Covalent, which is going to be fun. But just again, before we talk to them, I just want to remind people because, let me put this up again. Hi, Covalent. Let me put this up again. There is no COPE credit available for today's courses. And again, I've gotten so many emails, even more emails are rolling in right now, and I wish everyone could just hear me. You can't get credit for today's classes. Because this conference is sponsored by a single sponsor, right? Zeiss is running it. And Zeiss, helped generate some of the content. The lectures are not COPE approved. It's just the way it is. It's the way things work. So there's no COPE credit for today's lectures, even with the crisis going on. These lectures were not run through COPE. They have no numbers. They are just there for your information, and we hope you enjoy them. The content's really great, but they're just not COPE approved. So if you need credits, right, CEwire is still running.
Yeah, CEwire, absolutely.
So and it's running a little bit differently too now because it's acceptable as live credits to the ARBO. So through May 31st. So it's a very big change.
Yeah, but the key again, to be clear, the speaker has to be in the room when you take the course.
Correct.
So you just can't sign up for CEwire now and start taking taking the courses because there's no lecture on site. So you have to wait until the 25th. What is it?
Yeah, it's April 25th and 26th. All the speakers are going to be back.
26th.
Yeah, all the speakers will be back, and it's going to be live. So we'll get into that more later. So yeah.
Right.
So let me pull up. So Covalent Careers. So let me actually get this going here, and let me see. It looks like some of the guys are here, and let's see. Let me pull it on up and see. There we go. So Matt,
Hey,
Brett,
morning.
Antonio, are you guys there?
Yeah, Brett here.
Awesome.
And here as well.
Great. Well, good morning, guys. It's early for you guys too. I know we're all on the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Part of the day.
yeah. Well, thanks for being here. I was talking you guys up a little bit before. Can you believe how quickly we threw this thing together?
Oh yeah. I mean that's the trend right now. Is just everything that's done very quickly.
Yeah.
Might have been record time.
Yeah. So, I know that you guys are in California, so you are under sort of the same constraints that we are here in Oregon, sheltering in place. Have you guys been surviving okay?
Yep. Yeah, everything's been all right. That's interesting. I'm actually, I gotta get kind of lodged up in my bedroom here because my fiance is going to be exercising out in the main room where I'm usually working. But what's standard nowadays is that you hear in the background dogs and kids and loud noises and all of that stuff whenever you're on any calls.
Yep. So let's, I guess, why don't we just sort of bounce right into it? I guess I'm glad that we were able to sort of address the elephant in the room today, right? It would have been weird coming on here like everything was totally normal in the world, because obviously it's not. So, you guys are experts in hiring, and, basically the job market in eye care is what you guys do, and if people need advice, you're the guys to come to. So I guess the question I have is, since this whole outbreak, what have you seen happening in the job market in eye care?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I mean, the first thing to think about is the fact that the majority of stores, everyone from the private practice to corporate across the country, are closed, meaning you can't see patients, very hard to generate revenue. The only places where we're seeing practices really generate any revenue right now is either in contact lens sales or in filling the eyewear prescriptions that have already been purchased or were soon to be purchased. And what that's causing is a lot of challenges for practices because they simply just can't make or keep the same payroll that they had before. So what we're seeing now is what we would all expect, which is either a lot of layoffs or people waiting for the new bill to come out, the one that was just passed by the Senate and is going to the House hopefully today for a vote. And they're waiting to see what's going to happen with the relief package. And that could cause significant changes in what we see in the hiring market for eye care practice. Now, one of the things that practices should remember is that this will come to an end at some time, and they will then need either the same level of staff that they needed prior to this crisis, or we may even see a need for an increase in staff because you're going to have a backlog of patients that wasn't able to come and see you while the offices were closed. But the trends right now is that people are getting laid off, very unfortunate. A lot of part-time doctors that weren't working full-time, they are getting laid off. Some other doctors that were full-time are still, a lot of practices are keeping them on staff, but again, they're waiting for the guidance for what's going to come out because, 1 week or 2 weeks of doors closed is different than multiple weeks or months.
Right. And so in terms of the relief package that's coming, I guess you guys are on top of the news and what's going on. Do you know anything about it, and can you kind of just tell us what you think is going to be in it?
Yeah, so I actually just read through the bill that was passed through the Senate, and it's an interesting bill. So I guess I'll just give you a history on that bill. That bill started, and it was a little bit more favorable for small businesses, which would have included, obviously, eye care practices. And in the bill that did not pass the Senate, there was clauses where the private practices would have been able to get 4 times their average, essentially their average monthly expenses, less cost of goods. And that amount on the loans is set to be forgiven as long as you keep your same amount of staff on payroll. And there are specific restrictions for that forgiveness. For example, if you lay someone off during that forgiveness period, then the amount of the loan that you would get forgiven would decrease proportionate to the amount of people that you laid off compared to the total. So let's say you had 2 people on staff and you laid off 1, you would only be eligible for 50% of that forgiveness. The changes that recently happened in this bill that was passed was that the amounts changed to the fact that practices or small businesses would be able to get 2.5 times their average monthly payroll less the payroll for any employee who earns over $100,000. So this is going to make it interesting for private practices because your doctors are likely making over $100,000. So those amounts are not going to be able to be included in the maximum loan size that private practices are going to be able to both receive and then also to be forgiven.
Right.
Did you follow all that?
My gosh.
This is Steve Silberg. Dr. Silberg, I have a question about that. I know there's another stipulation that I heard that in order to get this, you also have to prove or demonstrate that your practice lost 50% of its business in a given quarter. Now, the first quarter is done, and a couple of weeks is not going to be less than 50%. And it's hard to predict what's going to happen in the second quarter. We're going to open in the end of May, end of April, etc. Are you familiar with that part of the clause?
I have seen something like that floating around, but I was just reading through the bill and I didn't see anything about that in the very specific bill that is on the Congress website right now.
Okay. It was in the summary. And again,
okay, but Paul Farkas here. Just to be 100% clear, there are many practices that hire the ODs as independent contractors. These independent contractors that are now, say, the boss says don't show up, are they just going to go file for unemployment insurance?
Instead, are you talking about it in terms of this loan, or are you talking about it just in general for the unemployment insurance?
Just for these ODs. They were always independent contractors, but now they're not showing up for work. So how does that figure into this?
Sure. So independent contractors are going to be able to be eligible for what's the term? What did we talk about? Unemployment insurance. Sorry. Independent contractors will be eligible for unemployment insurance. I am not sure if they're going to be eligible to be counted into this bill, but likely they were making over $100,000 anyway. So, that would factor them out of the calculation as well for this loan forgiveness. But they will be able to file for uninsurance.
Brett, Matt Gaylor here. When I last read it, it did include, and this thing's changing every day, as Brett mentioned, but this did include independent contractors for an optometry practice here. So if you had an OD on staff, maybe they were part-time, you will be able to calculate that individual's payroll into your overall payroll calculation.
Right.
Right. So as a practical matter, though, how is this all going to work? I mean, this sounds like, extensive means testing and rules and stuff. How, how are they going to actually execute all of this? Is that in the bill as well?
So the Secretary of the Treasury, Stephen Mnuchin, was on the 25th, the night of the 25th, actually the morning of the 26th, and he was describing that essentially they are trying to make this so the rules are so relaxed that small businesses can go into banks and get same-day loans.
Got it.
So they're going to be providing the banks with a lot of leeway where essentially they want to get these loans out the door fast. And that's why there's a lot of provisions in here. For example, in these bills too, which is very important, they're not going to be assessing your ability to pay the loan back. And they're also not going to be assessing your ability to have collateral on the loans, and they're not going to make you personally guarantee the loans. So these are truly loans where they just want them out the door.
Right. So then it sounds like if you are running a practice right now and you're in this mode where you're shut down, as everyone is, this is really going to be a lifeline for the small business person.
Yeah, that's what the goal of this package is. It's called the CARES Act. They want small businesses to survive and then eventually thrive again. And the way that they're going about this is they are creating packages where they want small businesses to keep their staff on payroll, and they're providing incentives for people to do that.
Right. So,
and there's no difference. We're having a big debate on ODwire that some optometrists are staying open, but they're only open a very few hours a day. So is there any differential between people that close their doors and the ODs that are staying open but only see a limited number of patients?
And that won't matter for this loan. Yeah, right. Matt here. That wouldn't matter for this loan. You got to keep in mind, this loan is basically just saying, what did you spend on payroll last year? Don't fire anyone over a certain period of time, and we will forgive that loan. That's it. They're not saying close your doors, open your doors, independent contractor, W-2 employee. They're just saying, what did you spend on payroll last year? We are going to multiply that amount by 2.5 times, average a monthly amount on payroll, multiplied by 2.5. We'll give you that amount of money. You can use that amount of money on payroll, rent, other utility expenses. If you fire someone, we're going to see that on your unemployment, records,
and then you will have to you'll have to pay back that portion. If you don't fire anyone, you get the loan forgiven. Whether or not you're opening or closing your doors, furloughing employees temporarily, that is not being mentioned here as a clause to not receive this loan.
What about from the employee's aspect, Matt? I understand the law permits a person to get the state unemployment benefit plus $600. So the employee's view would be that they actually get more money by being laid off with knowledge that they'll be hired again when the practice resumes, rather than continue with the practice and not work or work on a very limited basis. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, that's I think the big decision that a lot of practices are going to have to make is how to navigate that. I would just say, multiple steps there, and a very quickly changing, landscape. One could get pretty tripped up. So I think, that's potentially a bit more of a risky path. And there's going to be a lot more paperwork and a lot more to do there. So, if someone's got that time on their hands to try to navigate that, sure. But, with our business here, if we were going to pursue something like this, I would think to move through the most simplest means rather than trying to get every single dollar out of it, unless a business is so beyond impacted that they're considering shutting down for life or something. Brett, would you want to touch on that one?
Yeah, I think, and also the point you bring up with the $600 and folks earning more than they would have if they stayed employed, that's still a big contention point in the bill. But the Speaker Pelosi yesterday was describing, that the Democrats and the Republicans are pretty much in agreement on that now. They're saying that they're okay with that fact, so likely that will remain in the bill. But Matt's right. I mean, when you're thinking through this, unless you have a team of people helping you think through how to do this, the simplest answer is likely going to be the best answer. And if you're looking at the bill in two different ways, the best thing for you may just be to try to keep your entire staff on and get the maximum amount of loan forgiven. But you may also want to consider it because I believe the unemployment insurance is going to go for 4 months, and the loan amounts are only going to be for 2.5 months.
Right.
So you will need to look at that for your specific practice.
And the ticklish part from a management point of view is it seems that it would be a great advantage for the staff member not to be working, where the OD practically now is saying, I'm going to be here for emergencies, and I'm going to just have a small percentage of my staff with me. So this OD is asking the staff to come into work, show up, and risk COVID-19, while the other part of the staff is sitting at home, lounging.
Right. Yeah, that's the other major part to think about. I mean, that's a great question. I think that's a lot of the conversation that hasn't been had yet. It's, hey, you want to keep these people on staff, but you also don't want them to show up because that's the public health part of the whole conversation.
Right.
And the point you made about the 4 months versus the 2.5 months, not knowing how long this crisis is going to last. I'm in the New York metropolitan area. That's a calculation we can't even make, and it's a guess.
Yeah, that's right, and it's tricky. So there is also another interesting piece of provision in this bill where if you laid someone off before April 1st and hire them back by June 30th, they can still be considered in your total forgiveness calculation. So that's a more complicated part of what's currently in the bill. And I can repeat that. If you laid someone off before April 1st and you hire them back before June 30th, then they would still be able to be counted towards the forgiveness part of the loan. And that's currently in there. But again, anything can change because the bill's in the House right now, and it's already changed significantly since the last time you read it 2 or 3 days ago.
Right, and I think the reason they're doing it though, and I actually have up on the screen right now, I don't know if you guys are actually watching the live stream as we're talking, I put up the curve, right, of when they think this is all going to end. And if you look around the country, it's looking like, at least by, what the math is saying, that by June, this will all start to peter out by the middle of June. And I think that's probably why they put those dates on. That's my guess for why they're saying that. I mean, obviously we don't know, right? And anything can happen, but I think that's what the prediction is now, mid-June.
But once
Yeah,
President Trump signs this, it's there. They're not going to be able to change it. Is that correct? So a decision could be made. We're on the 27th today, and if he signs it before the 1st, right, you can lay someone off and then hire them back. But
right.
that can't be changed again once they can't change the rules in the middle of the game in the middle after the bill is signed.
Right. So they likely they would not change anything to be more detrimental for companies, but there are talks that there's actually, so this bill is for $2 trillion of stimulus, and there are talks that there's actually this quote unquote $5 trillion like super emergency pile of money that they are hoping they don't have to use, and they're hoping they don't need to do more stimulus. But Adam, because of what you were talking about before, where we simply don't know when this curve is going to end, you know, they have these other contingency plans and the talks of what to do about those plans starting already. So there may be more stimulus, is what I'm saying.
Right.
The trouble with the private practitioner is that they have to make a decision pretty quickly with these April 1st deadlines, and I don't know if the information is going. Hopefully, the AOA can produce a white paper for everybody, and they can see what the playing field is in a more simplistic way.
Yeah, so I'm going to be following this all weekend. I wrote an article. It's going to be up today about what I was just describing, and I will be following all the guidance. If this thing passes today, I'll read through the bill and talk to as many experts as I can to hopefully also help with what you were just talking about, in providing at least a little bit of guidance to people, or at least get the information out there in a way it can be consumed.
And just so everyone knows, if you go to covalentcareers.com, I actually have the site up right now so everyone can see it. This is a chock full of info, so I guess this is your sort of place where you're going to put everything so people can get to it.
Yeah, if you go to covalentcareers.com/coronavirus, you'll see a main image there. But covalentcareers.com/coronavirus is going to be where we put out everything coronavirus related. So far, we've as of this morning, we'll have 4 major pieces out there. One of them on how to navigate the student loan side of things. One of them on how to navigate the filing on taxes and delayed deadlines and things like that. A piece will go live this morning on exactly breaking down this bill and how one can apply for the CARES Act SBA 7A part of the loan. And we'll be following that, like Brett said, all weekend. And then a third major piece that we just put out yesterday, we partnered with GPN. They have the product that many are familiar with called Edge Pro. And we are tracking daily the average metrics across 3,000 practices in the United States. And what you're able to ascertain now, so Adam, if you click that first one there, that breakdown of the charts, you'll be able to see how practices are being impacted through live data. So you can see the decrease in payments, the decrease in new comp exams, contact lenses, frames, lenses, and it's pretty staggering to see in real time how these doors closing are actually impacting practices, and therefore you can maybe use some of those numbers to see where you stack up. And we will be adding more to this, but we're seeking to just add things that have value and that are going to be helpful for folks to navigate the difficult time.
Right. You know,
one question that may be a little too complex to answer, but let's throw it out. There are many optometrists, especially those that are starting out in practice, that have a practice that hardly breaks even, but then they have outside work that doesn't net $100,000 total. They're part-time jobs, and they still have a practice that's losing money. Where would they fit into this whole equation?
Yeah, you're right. That does get tricky. Standard unemployment and things like that, they wouldn't qualify for standard unemployment. If they're continuing to work, they likely would still not qualify for this new unemployment. And when it comes to the calculation for the forgiveness loan, the forgiveness loan is going to be off of the books for their eye care practice and what they're earning there. So their each individual's W-2 is not going to be, as I've read it, is not going to be factored into this bill.
So in other words, these folks are screwed.
Not necessarily. They're not necessarily screwed. It does sound like they might have a more difficult time because the amount of loan that they're going to be able to receive is going to be based solely on the last year's expenses, or the average of whatever they're doing last year. So if they weren't in business for a full year, it would just take the monthly average up to the loan's origination date. But there still is something for them. They're not necessarily screwed, but they may have a harder time than other practices or other people. However, if they are still able to keep that second job and generate some income from it, then they actually might be in a good position because they can get the loan through the business and they can also continue generating income through that other job that they're doing.
Okay, good.
Got it.
One of the weird, interesting things, Matt, is the estimated payments for people who generate a K-1, have a corporation, or independent contractors. The first installment is due July 15th, I believe, but the second installment is due June 15th with the wisdom of the federal government. I can't understand that, but you probably know that also.
Yeah, I'm going to have to pull it up because there's so much data flying around.
That's correct. It is what it is.
Okay.
So payment 1, which is normally due April 15th, is due July 15th. Payment 2, which is normally due June 15th, is due June 15th. It's government.
Got it.
So
that's definitely helpful. You know, it's a cash flow thing right there. You know, what's interesting though, and Brett and I were talking about this morning, a piece of this bill, I think looking at a version of this, and once again, this is on the congress.gov sites, this is the actual thing. A version of this back on the 21st allowed that multiple on payroll and expenses to be 4x, and now it's at 2.5x. So things are certainly changing, and everyone out there would have much more appreciated 4x over 2.5x. So, you know, when you're planning your cash flow here, you got to really pay attention to the fine print, and we're hoping to be covering it and try to decipher that for everyone. But that's a major hit right there.
Yep. So the big question I have, you know, we all, I think, are probably in the same boat. You're at home right now. You're trying to decide what it is that you can do productively. I mean, my house has never been cleaner. But beyond that, you know, what do you do as a practice owner? What can you do, or what should you be doing during this downtime? I mean, to make this as productive as possible, right? This is a unique opportunity for everyone to sit back and really think about what they're doing and where you want to be when all this ends. So what would you say? What kind of advice would you give people?
Yeah, I think the main thing is to think through the storm. And what I mean by that is to stay positive and think about the activities and actions that you can take today that will impact you in a positive way later. For example, at Covalent Careers, we're spending our time innovating, reading, watching the news all day, doing these things so that we can be educated and stay on top of things and understand what's going on so that we can plan for the future. When it comes to ODs, you know, the things that I would think about are your clinical knowledge. You can be researching a lot about clinical knowledge and improving your skills on that side of things. You can also be doing a lot of reading on the business side of things, improving what you know so that you can improve your practice over time. Learn more about your metrics, learn more about what your finances mean, learn more about how to manage cash flows. I mean, one of the, well, I don't want to call it a positive, but you know, one of the pros of everything that's going on is that it really tests people. And what I mean by that is you're really going to need to learn very quickly how to manage different situations, one of them being your business's cash flow. And you're going to have to get very comfortable with it and understand it at a more micro level. So those are the first recommendations. The other things that you can do are think outside the box and also think, you know, how can I help my community as well? And I know that's a little bit more challenging in these times because you really can't even go out into your community. But the things that you can do, for example, would be to go on social media and to provide information about eyes, eye care, how that relates to coronavirus, those type of things. I'm not an eye doctor myself, but I hear a lot of talk about conjunctivitis and its relationship to coronavirus and those type of things. So educating the community is also another big one.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, Brett. I think there's two kind of major lessons to learn throughout all this. You can definitely learn about markets and finance and how they relate to your practice. And I think there's a lot of time that one can spend on just general marketing so that when things start to get better, you've got some blog articles to go out, some social media posts to go out, just anything you can do to help kind of, address the fact that patients are going to be potentially worried about coming back to see you. Any content you can create around that, and just spend this time to kind of get all your ducks in a row, get organized, and keep on cleaning, like Adam said.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for being here today. And again, thank you for, helping us put all this stuff together. I didn't realize that there would be such demand for this. I knew it would be successful, but literally 2,000 people here. So very obviously people are sort of doing their own kind of mental cleaning, I guess, wanting to come here and learn. So thanks for helping us put all this together.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
our pleasure. And
our pleasure.
If there's anything specific that people want to know about, if we don't know about it, we could do the research on it and put something together. If we do know about it, we're happy to share what we know.
Excellent. And I will always...
Brett,
Yep.
One little thing. I just got an email from your company saying I can get a free slit lamp shield for my Zeiss slit lamp. Thank you very much.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Thanks to Zeiss on that one. That's really cool. And I think times are going to change big time, after this. Practices, people are repracticing a lot more, a lot better hygiene and things like that. And so I think slit lamp shields are here to stay no matter what. And so thanks to Zeiss for supplying those free of cost. I think they're shipping in roughly 2 weeks, probably just in time for us to open back up. And I wish everyone the best out there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We're going to actually hear more about those shields later on today. We're going to have some interviews and talk to the folks at Zeiss about it. So again, thanks, guys. And hopefully we'll hear more from you online.
Thanks,
Great.
Adam. Take care.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so Steve and Paul, are you still there?
That was, oh yeah, I'm here. That was
Oh man, I was
useful.
interested.
Yeah.
If they put something together, they could really direct the eye care field better than or national and state agencies, because people are not going to know what to do.
No, people should be going to their site for sure. I mean, if you see what they've put together here with the live data and with advice, you should go to covalentcareers.com /coronavirus and just check it out because they really do have helpful data here, and Matt's really great at summarizing all of it. So kudos to them for being on top of it.
Yep, absolutely. And there's just so many variations in optometry. There isn't just one type of optometric practitioner.
Yep.
And each of them has their own unique set of problems. So
Yeah.
Your question was a very good one. It's very common for young ODs to be working in a practice as an employee and also working as a 1099 or 1099 in both.
and losing money on their practice. I mean, they're a negative there. So that's a tough one.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there.
Yep. So I want to show everyone, while we have a few minutes here, we haven't really spoken about it yet, about the courses that are going on here today. We probably should mention that, right? I mean, that's why people are here, not to listen to us yap. So courses going on right now, right? So we have the Highway to the Cone Zone, updates in keratoconus. That's pretty clever. Ultimate Guide to Smile Refractive Surgery for optometrists. So getting you up to date with some of the latest tech, probably a useful thing. And then Glaucoma Grand Rounds, How Not to Crack Under the Pressure. Boy, who came up with these titles today? They're pretty clever. And Billing and Coding. So we have a lot of the talks, more talks today than tomorrow. So you can see Billing and Coding for Medical Optometry. Key Performance Indicators of a Successful Medical Optometry Practice. And this is actually an interesting one to me, just from a management perspective, right? Because what gets measured gets done. So that'll be an interesting one if you don't use metrics a lot in your practice, to go and check that one out. Digital refraction, again, an important topic. And those are all the ones for today. And we're actually be speaking, I think, to some of the speakers of these courses later on as well. So hopefully everyone is enjoying the classes. And Steve, I can't actually see inside the courses right now. How's it all going inside there?
It went well. There was a lot of interaction. It was only the keratoconus course that was on first. And at the beginning, they had 95 people. They ended up with 400 people in the course.
Jeez.
So, there was a pretty good interaction between the speaker and the people in the room. So it was great, doing well. And I think as the the day proceeds, we get more people on because there's more choices of what to do. I myself, the billing and coding, the glaucoma rounds, they're great. And these will be on demand, I assume, afterwards. So, correct? So
Yeah, correct. These will be on demand. Yep.
So you take one course now, you can always take the other course later on without interaction. That's not a problem.
Yeah, they'll be on demand, and in fact, we may actually transfer some of them over to ODwire as well later on when all is said and done. So hopefully, some of these pieces are really enduring, right? They're not going anywhere. They're going to be generally useful for years. So we could take some of these pieces and put them there as well. So
perhaps even the discussion we had with Covalent could be put on. Could you do that as a recording?
I think so. In fact, that one was so important that if I have, excuse me, time, I'll try to get it done today so we can get it up on ODwire as well. Right now, our conversation, this live stream is running on the front of ODwire as well as inside of the site as well. So hopefully some folks are watching and enjoying it. And Paul was right, actually. We have a huge number of people registering for ODwire, and I'm sorry if we haven't verified you.
What's going on? Look at this.
Well, you know what I think it is? People are coming to the site. They're coming to the live stream. They're seeing, that they're not members yet, and they're just registering. So I apologize if we haven't let you into the site yet. It's just because we don't have time to go in. With ODwire, the way it works, by the way, it's we manually vet everyone that comes to the site. We actually research who you are before you're allowed in. So it's sort of the opposite of the way most social networks work, where they just try to run the numbers up. We're different. We really actually look, or I should say Paul actually looks, right? He's got nothing but time on his hands.
And also, we don't allow assumed names.
Right.
You have to register under your own name, and because I check to see if you're licensed in the place you say you're practicing.
Yeah.
So
and the great news is that it's all ODs, so you can talk about things that you might not be able to talk to in other social media platforms, and that's people.
And it doesn't go out on the internet.
Yeah, so it's very private. It's very on the inside. Some stuff, we keep a little more public. So for instance, like the live stream right now, I put it right on the front page because why not, right? Everyone can come out and hear us. But the actual conversations where, people are talking about sensitive stuff, that's inside and it's private. We don't want, the general public looking at this. We want to sort of keep it in the family, right? Just to let people let their hair down in a more private place.
And do they let their hair down?
Yeah, it's it gets kind of crazy there, doesn't it?
As the moderator, they keep blasting me. I can never do things right to certain groups.
Well, that's how you know you're doing a good job, right? If everyone hates you.
That's right, for sure.
Excellent. Well, we're coming up in 10 minutes. We have Angelo Rego from Zeiss. So he's the head of their global ophthalmic diagnostic at Carl Zeiss Meditech, and we're going to talk to him all about what Zeiss is doing in about 10 minutes. But before then, I want to just mention one more time, because people are going to ask me this, and they've asked me it a million. Before I do that, let me just remind everyone too. In addition to the conference that's going on today, you can see up on your screen, Zeiss is having a series of other webinars that they're doing on their own. Nothing to do with us, but they asked us if we could market them, and I said absolutely, because people have so much spare time on their hands. So you can see up on the screen right now, there's a webinar about glaucoma coming up that they're doing, glaucoma with OCT. So feel free to text. If you text glaucoma to that number, you'll be registered, which is a pretty neat little system they have going. Zeiss is apparently doing this with a lot of different shows, and Angela will probably talk to us a little bit about that too, about what they're trying to do. I mean, at the very least, you can see that Zeiss is trying to keep you entertained while you're trapped.
And you never know about COPE. They may, because of the emergency, and because there's so much good material, I'm astounded at the wonderful material we have today, they may have second thoughts about allowing some of this for state board credit.
It's possible, but I'm going to say no. Just from dealing with them, I know that they have a very rigid system in place. I don't want to say rigid, that makes it sound bad. But COPE's and ARBO's function is to protect the public. And so they have a very well-defined process for getting CE approved. And it's not something they can easily skirt. And I'll be honest with you, when they came out with their guidance, and let me find that for everyone. I'll pull it up on the screen so you can see it. They changed their rules about CE. Let me pull it up to show people. So we have it here running on ODwire. When they made that rule change very suddenly, I was shocked. So the rule change that they've implemented right now, and I think this is about as far as they're going to go, because remember, when they make these changes, they force the states to act and decide if the states are going to support what they're doing. And this was a shocker. So they have put a bunch of states in a really interesting position. So the rule change the COPE made, you can see I describe it here on ODwire, and I actually put up the letter that they sent out, was that if you have live CE, right, like live in person, like Vision Expo East, let's say, which got canceled, if you have something that's been approved for live usage from now until May 31st, if you feel like giving this talk in an online format, meaning like we're doing right now, if you have a talk that's been approved already for live use and you want to show it to people online, if people attend online, they will get credit for that class. Literal live COPE credit that will go into your Arbo tracker with that live course number, the same as if you sat in at like Vision Expo. This is a mammoth change from what usually goes on online. Normally, first of all, states limit what you can get online in terms of credits. And secondly, you have to get a special kind of credit. When we submit this stuff to COPE, the lectures, we have to do it a few different ways, right? There's live, meaning in person. There's online interactive, meaning live online. And online enduring, which is just when you watch the archive and take a test at the end. So these are all different things. So the fact that they've reclassified the stuff that you watch online as live is a huge deal. And that's why they only did it through May 31st, because I think they realized the chaos that this would cause if they did it for a longer period of time.
And to add to you, Adam, not only is it better for the practitioner, but they don't have to take a quiz for the live presentation when they would have to take it for what you called live interactive. So it makes it somewhat easy for the OD to get the credits.
Correct.
You should watch the whole lecture and learn from it, though.
Yep.
Not to dismiss that.
Right, and so with a course like CE Wire, for instance, see, I have my own little platform here I can plug, right? So for a course like CE Wire, you might remember we did the actual live portion of the show back in February. It was one and done, right? We had all 60 speakers come and do the thing then. But because this change happened with Arbo, they are allowing us to, we were able to wrangle the speakers and get them all back again on April 25th and 26th. And if you watch,
wrangle, we paid them.
Well, of course we pay them, but you can pay people as much as you want. But you know what it's like actually getting all 60 people back? It was a nightmare to actually. I mean, so this is a nightmare, of course, that you're oblivious to because you don't have to do it. But for those of us who have to do it, we were able to get all 60 speakers to agree on those dates. So they're coming back, and if you watch a lecture on CE Wire on those 2 days, you're going to get live COPE credit for those lectures. On your transcript, it'll look exactly like if you just sat in on a course at SECO or VE or wherever. So it's a huge change. And on those days, I guess tests are going to be optional. I think we might leave the tests running so people can keep them up there and look at them, but you don't have to pass them because this is live CE. Yeah. So we're going to leave them there, but again, you're not going to have to pass them.
Well, I'm suspicious though. For Vision Expo East, these speakers come there. I don't know if they're sponsored at all by companies when they come in. Do you think that Vision Expo is paying them individually, or do you think that some of the sponsors are kicking in? And how does COPE know this?
Well,
but apparently the COPE approved that thing, so they allow it for Vision Expo East.
They do.
They're much tougher with us for sure.
Yeah. It's online has a much higher threshold usually. Again, we have to have a testing mechanism and so forth. So so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward after May 31st. I suspect that this is going to be a one and done thing and Arbo is going to revert back to their usual operating procedure, because I think what they're trying to do here is allow the ODs to get enough credits, right? Because with these major conferences being canceled, and has the AOA been canceled yet? Because if it hasn't, it really should be.
No, they doubled down. They kept their notification yesterday, which I put on ODwire, is that they're still planning that June meeting in Washington. Who's going to attend? That's a secondary question.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Who's going to be first on the airplane? So we'll see.
Yeah. So
it's not also the big national events, all the local society meetings, regional, statewide. Sometimes ophthalmologists have it for free that people attend to promote their practice, but it's True C. All those aren't happening now. So it's really the whole gamut of live C is stagnant.
Yep. So people are desperate for their hours, and that's why COPE did this. But I have a feeling they're going to revert after May 31st back to the regular rules, because this is creating huge issues for everybody. It's issues for us, right? Like we had to scramble to actually get C-Wire, get the machine cranked up again, and get everyone booked back in. But really for the states, this is an issue too, right? Because now the states have to contend with this. People are going to have live COPE CE on their transcripts that they didn't actually take live. They took internet live, right? They did it online, like we're talking right now. But on their transcript, it's going to look exactly like they were in a live lecture. So what does that look like to the state boards? How is that going to work? Even if they audited someone who took these courses, how would they know any different from where they took the class? So, yeah. So it's creating a huge issue.
See, well, yeah, except that when's the date for Florida?
Yep.
Florida is meeting, the state board is meeting in Florida April 5th, and they're meeting to discuss online CE. Now, whether that's just for the temporary part, like Adam says, or whether it's going to be permanent, or maybe it'll be a combination. Maybe they'll loosen their strings, which is basically no.
Yeah, I don't think they can go back. Once they've let the horse out of the barn, it's going to be very tough for them to put it back and say no more of it.
Right.
They
well,
might back
the ODs will go crazy.
Yeah.
But they might not allow the live CE online. They might say, okay, you could take half your credits online, but it'll count as some other category.
And I have a feeling in Florida, with what's going on now, that they're going to really, really have problems for a long time. And they have cash cow lectures sponsored by the county and state associations. And that's what keeps.
I think you have to separate the financial aspect of it from the public health aspect of it, right? You have to try to separate them. Now, we provide online CE, but I don't think, and again, this is just my opinion, right? I have no clinical studies to back it up. I think that the majority of CE can be taken online and it's safe. I think that there will always be a subset of courses that you really shouldn't take online, right? Where you really do need sort of a wet lab kind of format. And I just think
the wet lab courses, absolutely.
And so, but I think that they should separate it out. The states need to come to a decision about how they're going to do this, where you maybe have 25% live in person and the majority on the internet. Because the reality is, if you look at the courses, I mean, take a look at CE-Wire's courses. Most of this stuff can be taught online just as effectively as in person, right? I mean, Steve, your course on epigenetics, I mean, do I really need to see you in person for that? It's not like you're showing us how to do a procedure, right?
Well, I was going to show you like little pieces of DNA and stuff like that. But,
right.
But no. You're correct. They just have to get alternate streams of revenue. Now, I do go to some of these meetings for social interaction. It's nice. You go for a day, you meet your friends, etc. But I don't know if many people do it for that reason. They want to just satisfy the state board requirements.
Right. I mean, there's real reasons to go to these things in person. I go to all of them, right? And it is actually great to get in contact with people. And it's almost funny because the CE at a lot of these events is almost like it's getting in the way of things that people want to do, right? Because the CE runs simultaneously with everything else. And people always say to me when they're there, oh, I have to go to the CE course. I really want to do something else, right? I want to talk to these vendors. I want to, if it's like the AOA, it's a political meeting, the actual CE itself starts to interfere with everything else. And why should it when you could take these things just as easily at home?
Well, but it allows them to catch up on their sleep. That's the other part,
Yeah, and the New York Times and the Angry Birds or whatever it is.
Right.
But also, when I've gone to these meetings, Academy, AOA, etc., there might be 6 lectures going on at the same time, more if not more, and you want to see both of them. You can't live. So if they put those lectures then on demand with a live interaction with the content live, that would be great. And they don't do that at this point in time. They might consider all that if COPE allows that to happen.
Yep. So guys, I actually have to let you go for a little while because I'm going to be speaking with Angelo Rago. But if you want, when this call is over, when I'm done with him, if you want to call on back and we can chat a little bit more.
Sure. About 15, 20 minutes, I can go make myself lunch.
Oh, there you go.
Well, how long do you think we'll be on?
I don't know.
How long, about 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, maybe 15 or 20. Yeah.
Okay, well.
All right. Yeah, you guys could actually watch. How about that?
Got it.
All right, guys. So I'll talk to you in a bit.
See you. Bye.
Okay, and I'm going to get Angelo going here. I just have to pull up the proper number, and then we'll be on our way. Okay. Alrighty, and let me give him a call here. Hopefully we can get him. And it's still early, of course, here on the West Coast, so I always wonder about trying to call folks. So let's see. Always flying without a net here, not knowing if I've keyed in the number correctly.
Hello?
Hi, Angelo. It's Adam Farkas. How you doing?
Hi, Adam. How are you?
I am doing well. Are you hanging in there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you're in California, I guess. You know, we're just up the road a little bit in Oregon, so I think you're under the sort of same conditions as we are up here, locked at home.
Yes, exactly. When do we launch then?
So we're on the air right now. We are live and ready to rumble.
Wonderful.
So yeah,
Yes.
so
Thank you. Well, you know, as we do, the California situation has been in the news. We're a little bit of a hot spot here in Northern California, so a very interesting time for us. And of course, as I imagine for you and your family and your entire team, as we've done, the first priority is making sure that our homes are safe and our families are safe.
Yep.
And we were faced last Monday on the 16th with basically being notified at roughly 1 o'clock, 1:30 that we had to be shelter in place by midnight of that day. So moving an operation to a complete remote access in that short period of time is not easy, let's say. And our team did a great job. And of course, our priority number one is keeping our employees safe. And we believe if we do that correctly, we can take care of our customers during this challenging time. And that's what we did. So, you know, we're supporting our customers with our customer care team currently and our clinical applications team from a remote location. And all that is going well, and we continue to do what we can to help in this very strange time, very new territory for all of us.
yeah, and you know, I have to thank you and Zeiss. You know, when all this all sort of happened, you know, you really stepped up. We've been doing this conference with you now for the last several years, and you really helped us accelerate the process to get this on the air so that docs could watch this. You know, usually we do this in, I guess, the early summer. But we were able to push everything up, and your team did an unbelievable job getting all the content ready and working with us to get everything in place. I mean, it was a huge undertaking, really, and I was amazed with the speed with which you were able to do all this. So kudos to you.
Oh, thank you. But I think that, you know, if we look at, like you said, it's been several years now, our partnership with ODwire and Covalent Careers has been really strong, and you know, if you think about why we started this, right, we were getting feedback from our customers, the community saying, hey, it's expensive. There's a lot of events. Closing a practice is not easy to do. And enabling this virtual content sharing is, I think, a critical piece. Matter of fact, if we think about the future, and I think the COVID-19 situation has just accelerated the rate at which these solutions need to be put in place to help our customers deal with their reality and their practices today and in the future.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's fascinating the number of people that have actually come to today's event. I was stunned. You know, we have over 2,000 doctors here. So very clearly there's a hunger for this, and I think you're right. I think this whole COVID situation has really accelerated everything.
And I think, to me, I'm breaking it down into different buckets with our team as we start talking about this. Right now, we're in immediate emergency mode. What can we do immediately to help our customers and our doctors? The next step is, as you know, God willing, we're going to come out of this. This ramp up, what is that going to look like? How is that going to influence the practices day in and day out? Because my personal opinion, this is not Zeiss's opinion, my personal opinion is this is not going to be, April 16th, we're all going to go back to work and the life will be what it was 3 months ago. There is going to be some ramp up. I'm sure there's going to be guidelines that are going to be given, and I think it's going to be regional. The poor people in New York are facing a huge battle right now. And it's not going to be a nationally equal movement, I would argue. If you look at Europe right now, every country's in a different battle with respect to COVID-19. And so I think we need to prepare solutions and support for our customers in that ramp-up phase. And then, of course, ultimately, I believe COVID-19 will change the future of medicine and how it's practiced. And we had already programs in place, but accelerating programs to think about how do we ensure that if this ever happens again, that our customers are prepared. And we've enabled solutions. So I think there's three time horizons, immediate, the next 60 days, and then beyond. And that's the way I'm thinking about it from a day-to-day business with our team.
Right. So let's talk about immediate then. We're putting on, obviously this event today. You also have a lot of other resources that you're deploying for people to watch online. You want to just speak a little bit about that?
Yes. So breast shields is number one right now. We've got a worldwide program that actually started with our team in China because, of course, they faced this first. And we've expanded that now to Europe, the U.S., and Canada. So we've already shipped 5,000 of these breast shields globally for slit lamps, and we're in the process of bringing in even more. These breast shields are not just for Zeiss; they're for the community. So if you have a slit lamp, a doctor can go on our website and order a couple of those breast shields for their slit lamps. And start that process. And I would argue some clinics, as you know, are closed today, so they're going to need them when they start back up again. And some are open today and they need them right away. So we're trying to do the best we can to fulfill that as quickly as possible. But that's the number one. Number two is cleaning guidance on diagnostic devices. We have that we've put in place to clarify for each device, each Zeiss device, what is the right way to clean and disinfect a device. Again, I think this is going to be a big issue in the ramp up as well. And then the other thing we're doing for practices that are still open but lower in capacity, we're doing online training and remote training on devices through via Facebook, WebEx, telephones, anything we can do to support our customers. And if you Google Zeiss Med Support Now, it'll come up first, and you'll be able to go to that website and see everything we're offering, and we're going to keep that updated. So as soon as there's new information, there's other things that we're working on to protect our doctors and their staff, and we'll continue to update that on a regular basis so that all that information is accessible.
Fantastic, and I have it up on the screen right now actually so people can see the site and the URL. So this is definitely a resource that they can use and continue to use. And after we're all done with this, and we're going to put this interview up on ODwire, I'll put all the links underneath it as well, so people can get to the stuff easily later.
Yes, and again, I think it's one of those things you should check a couple of times a week just to see if there's any updates at a minimum.
Right. So I guess one question that we've seen, and I mean California, you've obviously probably got it as hard hit as anywhere other than New York maybe. With what's going on, what do you think people should be doing? We're seeing a lot of lockdown measures across the country. People are not really, other than emergency care, they're not going into the office. What can people do or docs do to sort of keep that continuity of care with their patients right now? What are sort of the best practices that you're seeing emerge?
Well, I think this is interesting because there's some parallels between what we're doing in industry that could be applied to our customer base or the doctors across the nation. And I think the main thing right now for us is maintaining communication with their patients. We're doing that on a daily basis with our employees, but I would argue that would reflect there. And we're leveraging, online video chat and other tools, Zoom and so on. And I would argue that especially the elderly patients, trying to find a way to stay connected with them on a very active path is really critical. And if I think about for optometry, we want those patients coming back as soon as possible, and strengthening that link to your patient population is very, very important. I think you're seeing from CMS that they're relaxing some of the HIPAA compliance topics related to communicating with patients remotely. And I think we have to keep that in mind. Maybe some of the compliance elements that have been there in the past right now in such a crisis are being lowered so that we can really actually have those the leadership of those practices continue to outreach to their patients.
Right. Yep. And it's going to be an interesting, I would say, you mentioned the different phases of this crisis. I think it's going to be an interesting 60 to 90 days. I put up on the screen again so people can see it. This is what we're all facing, right? I put up California's curve. And, what do you see? I mean, it's obviously none of us have a crystal ball, but as things move forward, they're thinking that by June, hopefully the worst of this will have blown over. So what do you see going forward for the industry? I know, it's hard for people to think about what's going to be afterwards, but we really need to, right? We all need to plan. What do you think is going to happen, post-June?
Well, where I'm focusing our energy, so first thing, if I think about innovation priorities, we have not stopped innovating, right? So our innovation teams are continuing to work. What we're starting to look at is priority changes based on what will happen post-COVID-19 crisis. And we're even thinking about holding some webinars where practice owners and doctors can dial in, and because I believe there's going to be a workflow change, that I think that the workflow in practices might be modified in light of what the guidance is going to be as we ramp out of this. And I think here's my struggle with the timeline. As I was saying earlier, I think parts of the nation will come up faster than others, but the guidelines most likely will be the same across the nation that we're going to hear from CMS or others. And so I think these are the things that we got to watch out for, and we want to create forums where doctors can have that conversation and start to prepare, and then we can figure out what we can do as industry to support that effort. No one has a crystal ball on where this is at. If you look at China, the messaging we're getting out of there, and Korea, is that they're back on a growth curve. They're getting back to some level of normality. I would argue that Europe in general, of course, we have a strong base in Germany and Central Europe. They're really right in the middle of their fight right now, and there isn't yet that timing question. The light at the end of the tunnel isn't clear yet. For us, I think as a country, we're a bit more optimistic. I think June. I think the president said he wants the economy back up and running by Easter. June sounds like a reasonable time, but what we're going to continue to focus on is number one priority: support the practices, support their need to support their patients, and the business will come back over time. It's not going to be, to me, I don't believe it's going to be an on-off switch. I think we're going to see a slow ramp towards the end of the calendar year. That's my personal thoughts, but of course nobody has an answer right now on timing, right?
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for this. It's good to see that you guys are taking a leadership position and just taking charge of this, and trying to get all the information out there and help the docs out, because I know it's been a stressful time for everybody. So thank you for that. So I guess we'll continue the conversation with you online.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, and I need to take a short bio break here, but while I do that, why don't I play for you a clip of the museum, the Contact Lens Museum. So this is something where we visited the Contact Lens Museum right before everything exploded here. Most people don't even realize there is a Contact Lens Museum. It's in Forest Grove, Oregon. It's right near Pacific University, and it's a labor of love of Pat Caroline, and he has collected artifacts from all over the world of old contact lens materials basically from the beginning of contact lenses up until modern times. It's a really cool museum. And while I step out here for a few minutes, why don't we turn that clip on, and I will be right back in a few. So enjoy this while I'm away.
Pat, would you tell us how you came about this idea? What prompted you and Craig to start a collection?
Well, like most collections, you start collecting things one at a time, and then one day you wake up and you find you've got a museum sitting in your home, in closets, garages, and we found ourselves in that situation, and then decided that we were just going to open up a contact lens museum.
How long did it take you to curate the collection in here?
A long time, and that's an ongoing endeavor. Trying to do something of this magnitude while you're working full time and everything else, got full curriculum, and back there it's been very busy, but as you can see, it's just such a joy. It just brings so many smiles to so many faces when you bring older practitioners through here, because
another relic in.
It's so true.
Why don't you embalm me? After a few more years, you can
Yeah, that's right. We'll put you in the chair.
There you go.
That won't be creepy at all.
No, it won't be creepy at all. But no, you're so right. It's just so many memories then come back to all of us that were touched by contact lenses. It's when you think about how contact lenses have changed so many people's lives and changed their lives. All those keratoconus patients, irregular cornea patients. It's humbling, to be a part of having this history. So we felt that,
Adam was one of the younger patients. Where did you get your lenses? You were 9 years old?
9 years old, yeah.
So
Yeah.
Probably one of the younger contact lens wearers.
Yeah, they're in so many millions of people's lives have been changed so much with these.
Now, if practitioners have anything lying around their basements or garages or the back room of their practices, would you be interested in hearing from them?
Yes, we'd be very interested. That's where we pick up a lot of these relics. Every practitioner, literally everyone out there, has one or two items that have been given to them by an elderly patient, or they took over a practice that had been established back in the 30s or 40s. And somewhere in their archives are these treasures, that they've not known what to do with them. They hold on to them because they don't take up a lot of space, but they don't know they know they can't throw it out.
Right, of course not.
But they're looking for a place to send it. This is the place. This is the place to send it. So there, it can be archived, taken care of properly. Craig and I have spent, hours and hours learning about curating an optical museum like this. There's a lot that goes into it. We had to then apply for a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 with the government. We got that, so we're official.
So not only are you accepting items to be displayed here, you're accepting financial contributions to support the museum.
Yeah, very much so. This has been totally funded through gifts and so on, and by Craig and myself.
That's a good charity for next year.
That is, it really is. It's a lovely charity for individuals in the eye care profession that want to see, the history of contact lenses preserved. So you can see here we encourage donations, and so we love it. When people can, when they win the lottery, send us some of that, and so we have fun. But it's we get, believe it or not, our biggest support from patients. So they feel this incredible emotional, tie to these lenses.
Sure.
Now, this is actually just part of the collection. A lot of it still is in storage right now. We need a bigger facility. When we opened this up in July, we opened it up with the knowledge that we've already outgrown it.
It's a good problem to have.
Good problem to have. And so we're just going to keep raising, funds as best we can, and hope to move into a bigger facility as time goes on. And then this is, like I said, part of the collection. The other collection I'm going to show you is the collection of antique glasses, spectacle lenses. Probably one of the finest in North America right now, and that's across the street at the school. This has been just a passion for Craig and I, this collecting. And fortunately, we have wives that understand the insanity, because that's what it is. It's insane to be doing this. But Craig and I have been blessed so much, like you have, like we all have, by the eye care industry. That
Very much so.
Yeah, that it's just been a humbling experience to be a part of it. So this is our payback, or this is our legacy that we'll leave. So.
And it's a beautiful one.
It's a start. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful start, and so we're real happy, very, very happy with it all.
Excellent.
So many, many years ago, as you can imagine, it's really myself and Craig Norman who kind of put this all together. The story begins over here. I'll sort of walk you through. This is kind of the evolution of contact lenses. All of these lenses here are made of glass. And so these were the earliest contact lenses in Germany and Zeiss. So they were the three making glass scleral lenses at the time.
When did Obrick come in?
Obrick came in the 1940s. How do you know that name?
I used to live with him.
Oh my. I was just reading a book this morning, his textbook from 1945 on contact lenses. It's really one of the earliest.
Yeah.
And that is, what a coincidence.
Oh, yeah.
So
Are these companies related? It's
no,
Muller Sohn
they were
and Muller
different-
Welt?
No, they were different families.
Okay.
Yeah, they had no relation. And so these, like I said, it's the largest collection of glass contact lenses in the world. So it's they're hard to find, very rare, wonderful to feel because they're incredibly heavy.
Can I touch one?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can touch the one that is yours. Craig and I wanted you to have this. This is a glass
Really?
scleral lens.
Wow.
And it's all the contributions you've made to the industry. You deserve that.
Oh, you are so kind. Thank you.
Yeah,
Look at this thing.
It's kind of neat to have. You can see kind of how rough the optics were.
Very rough.
And, but, they got better with time. That's a real early one.
Would you like
What
to see?
year?
This would have been probably early 1900s.
Wow.
So between 1900 and 1910. But you could feel how smooth
Yeah.
the glass
The workmanship was wonderful.
But, yeah, it's, that's definitely one we wanted you to have.
That's very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This would be a real challenge to apply and to remove.
Yeah, it really is because of the size. These were about 22 to 24 millimeters in diameter, so they were pretty big.
And then I see that they're fenestrated as
Some
well.
of them were, and that's kind of unique, the number of them that were fenestrated. You can imagine drilling a hole in glass can be a little bit challenging. And,
A lot of breakage.
Yeah, but I'm always surprised when I'm going through the lenses, the number of them that have actually been fenestrated.
And that would have been a challenge as well, not only drilling the hole, but making sure that the edges are smooth enough.
Oh,
Because
yes.
that would have been quite painful had you applied a fenestrated
Yeah.
lens that wasn't smooth.
But then you look at these Zeiss lenses, the optics are absolutely perfect and they're incredibly thin. And I always wonder how many of those broke in the eye. You know, it wouldn't take much trauma
That would have been
to
a
shatter
really big problem.
those, yeah. But that was unique of the Zeiss lenses at the time. They were incredibly thin.
Do you know who made this one, the one that you gave me?
That one, yes, I do. That one was from the Mueller-Weld company.
Wow.
Yeah, that one.
Look
from
at these.
there.
And then
So
those are the molds right there?
Those are the molds.
So that is
and let me-
brass, and
Let
then-
me take you through how, let's
looks like a
say
shell.
it's 1920 and I'm gonna fit you with a contact lens. It would all begin over here.
May I sit in the chair?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You sit in the chair again. That's where I sit. You know, I get comfortable in here.
Gretchen's gonna get a bit
And
into
now the molding process began by just simply mixing this compound. It's called moldite. And we would mix it in one of these containers. And then it would be placed into a syringe. And this mold then would be placed onto the eye and the moldite compound injected through here. And then it would take a perfect mold of the anterior segment. So the molding compound would harden in about 90 seconds. So you had to be real efficient with your time. You had to load this, inject it, and be pretty efficient.
So you have to do that on a board exam, right?
Absolutely. 1950s.
Jeez.
And then what happened next was when you had that beautiful mold, you would mix this next compound called cast stone. And that cast stone then was just like a concrete, but incredibly fine, powdery concrete. And then you would let it harden, and then you would have this beautiful impression of the eye. Now, back in the day, before World War II, a second mold would have to be made of brass. And the reason for that is that when the lens was actually turned into a contact lens, it was made of glass, and the glass would just simply, the heat of the glass would destroy the moldite, so it had to be turned into a brass mold. Then it was taken over here, and this is probably the highlight of the museum in the fact that we have the only remaining glass contact lens making apparatus in the world. This is
Really?
it. This is the only one left.
Does it work? If you
It
wanted
works.
to create a lens,
Oh,
you
yeah,
could?
yeah, we've had it fired up, and you could see we've destroyed part of the table from the firing it up, and it makes a lot of pops and noises. And now there was this vise was on the stand. We don't know what its function was, but it must have had some function. The problem with this instrument is that nowhere can we find anything written on how to manufacture the contact lens or how they were manufactured. So we're having to piece it together little by little. Now,
If I push this, is something going to happen?
Yeah, push it.
Push it?
Yeah, push both of them. This one.
Oh my
And
God.
it still works. That's the amazing thing. We fired up these motors and they were still working.
This is incredible.
So, now, the way it worked was you attach the mold, the brass mold of the shape of the eye here. Top two, I think. Perfect. Now, that bottom, yeah, no, you got it. You got them both.
Okay.
Good. And what would happen is you had natural gas and oxygen that were mixed together. Those were, it wasn't propane. Propane hadn't been invented yet, so they actually used natural gas back in that day. And so the gases were then mixed up here to the appropriate concentration, and these valves controlled the amount of oxygen versus the amount of natural gas.
It looks like it's a very non-precise process.
Exactly, very non-precise. Then they had these 2x2 wafers of glass that were set right here. And then this was just simply brought around once the glass had been molten, and this just brought down and an impression made of the contact lens.
And that's the mold right there.
That's the mold.
So you would
of the
swap
eye.
that out depending upon the
Yeah.
patient you're creating this for.
And then in this little container, when I got the instrument, it was just filled up to about here with asbestos.
Oh, excellent.
So that made it all complete. So then you would bring it back here, drop this mold, and because it was flaming hot from being in contact with the glass, and it would fall into the asbestos where it would be cooled. And now with these little tools here, the residual glass would be broken away. And then you saw over here how the edges were rounded, and then the power placed on the front of the lens with this. Now, the only thing we can think of here is that this was actually operated by hand to oscillate the application of the power on the front side of the lens. That's all we can actually kind of surmise. We don't know how else it was driven. And but everything came with the unit. It was intact. And it's actually from, of all places, Perth, Australia.
Don Ezekiel.
Yeah, Don Ezekiel.
And if anybody would have something like this, it would be
It'd
him.
be him. And you'll see as you go through the museum, many of the pieces are from Don's collection. And it was probably the largest in the world. And he gave it all to us. So we're really super fortunate to have that.
And he got his basement back.
I'm sorry?
He got his basement back.
Yes, they had his garage. He had it in his laboratory, but when he sold the laboratory, it moved into his garage. So he was kind of grateful, but again, sad to see it all go away. And but to have the only one remaining, now this is for this.
A mechanical tool then, nothing to do with creating the contact lens.
No, just strictly for changing out the gas.
Okay, I am pausing this and getting us back here.
Why I'm hearing such an echo.
And let's see. I'm going to mute.
I don't really hear it on my side.
I might just dial in.
Okay, so everybody, we're just about getting back here. I hope you enjoyed the little contact lens movie. And let me unmute everyone here. I think that Steve and friends will be here as well. Paul should be back too, momentarily, we hope. And then we can get going here. Alrighty, so the contact lens, museum, which hopefully you got a little taste of what it was like. You can spend all day there basically if you have any interest in the history of contact lenses. It's really the only place on the planet that is a single collection of sort of all the contact lens materials from way back when. And in fact, the only place where they had that machine, I think you saw it in the video, where they could actually make a scleral lens out of glass. So they don't really do that anymore. And so that machine actually works. We didn't put it to the test though when we were there. Apparently it involves a lot of fire and banging on stuff. So that was not for us. So we've got an interview coming up here in about 5 minutes. And I think Steve and Dad are my dad are gonna make it back here. Hopefully they'll get back on the line before we get going. But before we do that, let me just remind everyone about what's going on here today. So let me pull this on up. One thing that the folks have asked me to remind you guys of, when you actually get into the conference, and I don't know if you're there, when you get to the conference lobby, you'll see at the top, there's a thing here that says Sessions Lobby. That's where you want to go to log into the classes. So you click right up there, and then it'll list all the sessions that are going on right now. And you can see what's happening as of right now with billing and coding and the Ultimate Guide to Smile and the glaucoma grand rounds are going on right now. So that's how you get to the sessions lobby. If you want to talk to other participants, you just go into the chat lounge, you click that one, and that'll show you what's going on with everybody who's talking. So you can sort of see here, this is the general chat room where you can go and get advice from folks. So you can see that people are talking right now. And the exhibit hall obviously is where you can learn a lot about Zeiss and their equipment. And there's also a lot of white papers there. This isn't really just about equipment to buy. This is really about education. And there's a ton of white papers that they have in here too. And they divided it easily for you into retinal disease and glaucoma management, anterior seg. So much easier to navigate. And by the way, very cute graphics here. Thanks to Covalent Careers for making that all happen. So let's, we have about 1 minute before we're supposed to get on to our next interview, but let me just make sure that we can get them into the audio properly. And it looks like we have a couple callers here. Caller 1 and another caller here. So let me unmute this other caller. Callers. I'm going to unmute them one by one. So as you can tell, we're doing things a little bit differently here today just because of the fact that I'm here alone. I don't really have a production staff with me. We're sheltering in place here in Oregon, so I've been alone now for days. So running this entire thing myself, which is why we're doing the audio a little bit differently today, having a conference call and people calling in. So it looks like we have a bunch of folks here already. So it's Paul and Steve, are you guys back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, cool! You made it back. Awesome. Glad you see it back. Yep.
A lot of traffic.
So
was wonderful. People haven't seen that museum.
Yeah, that was a really fun trip. I thought it was a really special thing, and in fact, I forgot to mention to everyone, if you go to the Contact Lens Museum now, your diplomas are there. Is that right?
Well, I sent in probably about 100 pounds of diplomas.
Right.
One of the issues that you have when you retire is what do you do with all those plaques and awards that you get?
Right.
For a while, I just took them with me from place to place when we moved, but finally, that just takes up so much room. And when we got to the museum, he says, no, we would love to have it because your history. As long as I'm the history, you might as well put up the plaques there.
There you go. So if you want to,
I shipped them out.
So if you want to see Paul's diploma from Columbia University, it's up on the wall there, hopefully at the museum now. So why don't we see if we can get our guests in here? Let me make sure that they're unmuted, we're trying to get everyone to call in. It's kind of been fun doing this conference style today. So Stephen and Matt, are you guys there?
Matthew's here. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Matthew. So, okay, we have one. Let me see if I can get Stephen here. Let me see if he's this is always a challenge, right? So let me see. I see him here. Stephen, are you there?
Dr. Varka, Stephen here.
Oh, perfect. All right. So gang's all here. Perfect. Well, welcome, guys.
Okay.
So
Okay, well,
yeah. So I guess what we want to talk about today, since we have you here and the lectures are going on, maybe we'll talk a little bit about Dr. Pena's talk on wavefront optimization. And for those who don't know, let me pull up the schedule just so everyone can see what's going on here with the schedule, because sometimes we lose track of time at these kinds of events. So let me just pull it up and show everyone the lecture schedule so they can see it. There we go. And we're going to talk about, there we go, getting ahead of the wave front, digital refraction in practice. So the guys, what can you tell us a little bit about this lecture and what it's all about?
Sure. So Dr. Penna just goes through his experience and a couple of case studies of how he's been able to incorporate wavefront optimization into his practice. And what does that really mean? Well, Zeiss, many years ago now, is probably one of the best secrets in optometry is that we were able to address some of the limitations of the traditional subjective refraction. And the way we did that was to be able to take the wavefront data from an aberrometer and then use that to optimize the traditional subjective refraction. And the way we do it is we preserve the binocular balance, we take the spherical refinement and any instrument accommodation into consideration, and then we do a whole lot of refractions, basically from daylight size, photopic pupil size, through to mesopic, up to about a 5.5 mil pupil, and we see what other sphere cylinder access combinations can yield equal visual performance and acuity during the day, but improve it for at night and in low light. And we've had some great outcomes. And, if you think about the way the traditional subjective refraction is performed, it hasn't really changed in 100 years. And for many good reasons, rightfully so, yields good outcomes. But we've all had experiences with patients where they complain about reduced visual quality and comfort at night and in low light. And really, there's a way to address that. And the first step is to actually measure it and then take it into consideration when you do your refraction. And we're able to provide almost like a recommendation. It's like a second opinion, which you can throw in the phoropter, or if you have a digital refraction system, at a press of a button, you can put it into the phoropter and test the patient's performance with a different RX. And basically, Dr. Penn is going to go through the data. He's going to show some case studies and examples and how he handles those conversations with patients and how it's been able to have a huge impact in his practice, especially when incorporating it with a digital refraction system as well. He's seen great efficiencies and better patient outcomes because of it. And I hope many of you are able to join that presentation. It's very interesting.
Absolutely. And just so everyone knows, we can pull up the times again because we want to make sure that everyone makes it out. And by the way, most people don't realize, or they've asked, this is going to be available on demand as well. So if you miss it, the first go around, this will be back again. So today, 1 p.m. Eastern. So that's coming up very soon. So great. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about sort of the benefits of digital refraction, right? I think it's funny, you have digital refraction's been around for quite a while now, right? But you still have some people who haven't jumped on it.
Yeah, I suppose, a lot of people are reluctant to change. But it's interesting. For those that have been able to adapt and embrace it, it's done wonders in that improves the patient experience. One of the main things that I really like is the ability to show the patient so easily, what their current prescription looks like versus a new RX. and also the ability to do some new types of tests. You know, one of the great ones is a split prism. So if you think about the patient experience, you're no longer up in their face. You don't have your back turned to them. You can sit further back in a time of social distancing, but believe it or not, just for the patient's own comfort, it's actually nice to be able to have a control where you're not up in their face, you're not touching the phoropter, you sit back, or you could be standing at your comfort level and be able to control the entire, screen, acuity system, and phoropter. One of the things that I really like is the ability to do the split prism for power and access when doing, the refinement for astigmatism. What's nice about it is the patient sees both images at the same time. One of the things that patients often complain about is being tortured to the point where they can't tell the difference and they're unsure if they made the right choice. How many times when you've asked a patient one or two, and you get them to the point where you've driven them crazy and they're wondering in their mind, did they make the right choice? And is the prescription you're going to give them the best one for them? So by being able to show them both images at the same time, it takes away a lot of that anxiety. And then when you give them their new RX, they've got a lot more confidence in it. And on top of that, being at the very end of the refraction, showing them the difference, even if it is a quarter or even if it's half a diopter, it's surprising how many times an optometrist will tell the patient it's not much of a change. You don't need to get a new pair of glasses. But when presented the difference, they on their own accord will often want to update their prescription. So obviously, in terms of patient experience and outcome, it can have a tremendous impact in a practice. Dr. Pena will actually go through, I think he mentioned, he's actually all of his doctors are seeing 2-3 additional patients. So that's really a personal choice of whether the efficiency, you want to see more or you just want to spend more time being able to talk to your patients and do other things.
Right.
But they're the key things that I see.
Right. I mean, so that's an important point, right? The efficiency point. And Steve, I don't know what, so we have Steve Silverberg here, and Steve, in your clinical practice, what did you see?
It's definitely a choice. We haven't yet gotten the instrument, but you might find, for example, that a certain refraction is better for night driving and a certain refraction is better in daytime, and you present it to the patient that way, and certainly you can actually, A, improve their performance, they're happier patients, and B, sell multiple pair of glasses at the same time. Are you finding that, sir?
That's interesting. So what we did with the wavefront optimization, or the iScription we call it, is preserve the doctor's subjective refraction. So we constrain the change. So just to give you a little background on how this came about, when we first did the first clinical studies on iScription, what we did was actually give people their mesopic RX, right? And we let them wear it at night and in low light, and we asked them, can they see better? And the majority of patients saw better with the different RX. But what was interesting about that RX was it wasn't necessarily always more myopic. Some of them were more hyperopic, which surprised us, and often there was an axis shift as well. But they saw better at night. So then we gave them that same RX during the day, and there was a high non-adapt rate. Most of them couldn't tolerate that amount of change. So the whole theory in the beginning was, how much could we change that RX during the day, still maintain visual acuity at least as good, but make it better at night and in low light? And the way we did that was limit the change to only minus 050 or plus 025 in spherical equivalence. And by doing that and preserving the binocular balance from the original RX and preserve the ad power, we were able to have the same non-adapt rate as traditional RX. So what we always recommended is, for normal healthy eyes, you can prescribe iScription. They'll see equally good during the day, better at night and in low light. So there's your daylight prescription, which is still better for them. It's like a more balanced RX. But you do often have that encounter with a patient that just doesn't see well at night and in low light. With aberrometry, you can see usually a spherical shift. Some patients I've seen even up to 2 diopters. For those ones, yes, a different prescription for at night and in low light is going to be beneficial. They might need more of a change. Most of the digital refraction systems will allow you to do a reverse contrast acuity. You could turn off the light. You can do a different test. You can test, subjectively how well they can see. The Zeiss actual digital system actually has a live point spread function test as well, specifically for that. So you can actually turn off the lights, put on the light on the screen, and it's a white LED light, and you can test visual performance, and you can toggle between RXs. You can subjectively confirm, just making sure that they actually can reduce the amount of glare and contrast. So there's a variety of tools that are available, but so what we found is, we can, for the majority of patients, improve their visual performance, especially at night and in low light, from the traditional subjective. But sometimes there is going to be those patients that have a larger shift, that you will absolutely need to have some different tools to be able to test, and digital systems are absolutely help with that. It just makes it so much easier to change the chart and change the RX and toggle between different options.
Right.
Some ODs might want to know exactly what's happening. Do you know what's happening in the human eye at that point? Is there a change in spherical aberration versus a myopic shift where a particular prescription might be better at night? Or...
Yeah, that's so interesting. So where's the aberrations coming from, and how is it changing is a very good question. So a group of ophthalmologists back in the 1970s, I believe it was, did one of the largest clinical studies of about 2,000 vision-corrected patients, and they wanted to see how much of a shift there is between night and day. And they found a quarter of the patients had half a diopter shift or more, which was intriguing. But where's that coming from? So obviously, as the pupil size increases at night, so is the amount of aberrations, the errors that are introduced into the optical system. Now, the errors can come from the cornea, or they can come from the lens. It really does. It varies a lot between patients. We did a study to have a look at where does the shift go, and we couldn't find any particular pattern to it. Some became more myopic, some became hyperopic, some had a shift in one way or the other in terms of axis and some of the power. There was no rhyme or reason to it. One of the most interesting things that we found, though, was the eye likes to definitely keep itself in balance, and very often we saw patients that where the aberrations of the cornea were balanced out by the lens and vice versa. And the only way to really understand where the aberrations are coming from is to measure it. Obviously a corneal topographer helps. Wavefront aberrometer helps even more, because you're able to see exactly where the aberrations are coming from at different pupil sizes.
Real interesting stuff. You can get really into it. That's great. Do you coordinate with your Zeiss ophthalmics to maximize the person's acuity, or could they get it from any lab, the particular lenses?
So we do offer the algorithm to Zeiss supporting practices, but the machine, the aberrometer, the eye profiler could be for anyone.
Right. It's funny, Stephen. We had Angela Rago on just a little bit a while ago talking about all the stuff that you guys are doing online to try to support everyone, at this time where it's just so crazy out there and people are basically trapped in their houses in a large proportion of the country.
That's where I am right now.
So you're on the West Coast, right? So you're trapped in California. So I guess the question is, I saw that you have a webinar series coming up. You want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing? Because it sounds like you're going to be online an awful lot.
Oh, yeah. So we're running a webinar series right now. So if anyone's interested, you can go to zeiss.com/webinars. Actually, I'm presenting 6 of them next week on the 6th, 7th, and 8th. There's 2 sessions each day to cover East and West Coast. And they're actually on telemedicine. We were actually planning to launch a few new products at Vision Expo. We obviously dialed that back, but we're still going forward with putting them to the market. And one of them is a telemedicine platform. It's a closed system where we're kind of handing the MDs the keys, where we're not providing services for telemedicine, but we're providing a platform to allow them to do that. And I'm going to be covering what the platform looks like, just the practical details of how it can be used. And so one of the nice things about it is if you're an ODMD and you need to service multiple locations or want the ability to work from home or want to extend your hours of your practice, or you have a group of doctors that can support each other, or you're having difficulty recruiting doctors and you want to offer part-time, I'm going to go through that. I'm going to show how this can enable especially a lot of the independent doctors that compete against the larger retailers.
Great. Yeah, because, telemedicine has been considered sort of a dirty word for a while, right? People are very nervous about it.
Yep.
They don't know how it can work, but it's sort of cool that now we're starting to see tools that enable the doctor to just use it as an extension of their practice versus something that's kind of scary and looming out there to try to take patients away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key, right? Just showing everyone how they can control it. It's not in some cases, some of the models out there are very competitive and they are going head to head with a lot of the services that we offer. And we've taken the approach of building a platform that enables the doctor to have control. So if we have to compete against those that are offering extended hours and 7 days a week, and if you need to get into a rural location or you've got a problem trying to cover hours, we want to create the tool that allows you to compete and not only just compete but thrive.
Right. Yeah, I think this whole situation has kind of brought this to a head, right? So before people were content to kind of stay on the sidelines, and so this is a brave new world.
So yeah, imagine right now if you were able to schedule a patient one at a time, they were able to come in and all you needed was a tech on site. It definitely limits exposure and allows the OD or MD to work remotely from another location or even home if needed. In the future, I can imagine where you could be in your office and only come into the lane when you need to, but from your office, you could access any lane. You don't even have to be remote. You could be in the same office, but able to access multiple lanes from a single location and have, complete audio, video control and be able to share what you're seeing and displaying it to the patient. I think the world's changing quickly and these tools can easily complement the practice.
Absolutely.
Even farther in the future, I could see where hardware is available to the patient at home, where they might be able to not do their own refraction, but have their own refraction done via some sort of device, and it could be IOPs, et cetera, as well as looking into the back of the eye. So it very well might be a platform where everything can be done from home and office.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the trends in industry right now, like you see the emergence of, the fourth industrial revolution and miniaturization and artificial intelligence and machine learning and all this kind of stuff, right? So eventually it just makes sense that some of the medical devices and tools become smaller and cheaper and easier to use. And eventually it could be that a lot of the data acquisition is done remotely and always still needs to be interpreted and diagnosed by an MD, OD. I think the future looks like there's going to be overwhelming, easier access for patients. And I think we're going to have a lot of doctors very busy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have EKGs in my smartwatch now.
Yep.
So
amazing. I got one more question for you about your product. We haven't spoken a lot about product at this conference. It's been kind of crazy. We really have. I guess the world really has shifted. We haven't really spoken much about it, but I do have a question for you about digital centration, right? And I'm going to put it up on the screen right now so people can see it. So why don't you tell us all about? I'm seeing up on the screen it says one-shot centration at its best.
Yeah.
So what's that all about?
This one's been in the works for a little while. If you think about the digital measuring devices today to get your fitting measurements and position aware information, a lot of them require a tool to be put over the frame so you can calibrate the distance and angles correctly. And a lot of opticians almost see them as a threat, but like you're taking away a tool from them. They're very proud of being able to take manual measurements with a PD and ruler. And even the pupillometer can be inaccurate. So there's a lot of opportunity to improve both the patient experience and provide opticians with better tools to be able to do, a better service to their patients. With the VisuFit, we were able to, by having nine cameras and 45 million points of reference, we could have a patient self-position it lights up. And so as the patient moves towards it, the lights change until they become clear. And then we take one image. And with that one image, we take all the position-aware measurements more accurately than we ever were able to before. And so if you're looking at reducing non-adapts, or you're looking at providing opticians with better tools and improve the patient experience, it's incredible. But we went beyond that. So that's the basic thing that it does, is just take really good measurements for position-aware to get great outcomes for your patients. You know, if you're going to do a great refraction, if it's not fitted properly, what's the point, right? So, you know, with a 2 millimeter error in just PD measurements, you reduce someone's field of view by over 20%. It's crazy. So, you know, that will obviously help just being able to take accurate, easy measurements and a good patient experience. But beyond that, it can create a 3D avatar, a digital 3D image of the patient's face. And the reason why we've done that is we're working right now with frame vendors across the country to digitize their frames so that you can accurately display and show the patient how they look in different frames. And it's not like the virtual try-ons that you see today. It looks accurate. It looks like you're looking at a mirror, and it's a 3D image that you can rotate and shift and zoom in and zoom out and take accurate fitting measurements with it as well. So the idea is a patient could walk into an optical, can try on 1,000 frames without you having the cost of 1,000 frames. So talk about reducing inventory. You could have them try any frame online in the store, and then choose one. You can order it from the frame vendor and do it. So it just opens up a plethora of inventory for you without the cost of it, and be able to take the measurement. Further down the line, we're going to release updates to this technology over the next few years. And the next one will be the ability for the patient to potentially do it online. So we're going to give, again, the keys to the practice to be able to say, wouldn't you like to be able to market to your patients throughout the year? So if you've got their 3D image, you've got their prescription, why not advertise to them and say, look, here's a link. We have a new summer range. Check out these colors. They can try it on online, and you own the digital image. You've got the ability for the patient to see themselves in your new catalog and be able to update their prescription. So instead of only seeing them once a year, 2 times a year, we want you to be able to engage with your patients more regularly and allow them to update their frames throughout the year. You know, why not have a summer collection? So, and then eventually we see that the 3D image or the avatar that's created could make a custom frame. So, you know, we're working on the ability for those out there that do 3D printing, customized frames. You could potentially purposely make a frame to suit perfectly the person's face. And so that's where the VisionFit comes into play. I think first and foremost, just a great experience. Secondly, just takes great measurements and then allows you to compete even more so online in the future.
This is a brilliant.
One thing I worry about is what if the technology was duplicated by the frame manufacturers themselves and they went direct to consumer, and then people get the avatar, they try in the frames, they buy the frames, and they come into your office and say, okay, put the lenses in that I need. Could that be a possibility of what might happen?
Well, I don't know what the frame vendors are going to do in the future in that way. But we definitely like to beat them to it and give you the ability to keep that patient in your practice. So I think by having that 3D image of the patient, you've got control and you've got the prescription, you've got the fitting measurements. So we want to enable you to compete. Whether they come out with something similar, I don't know how far away that might be. But if they're going to go online and shop, which, you know, let's face it, a lot of patients are, why not be able to compete with those people? Why not have the technology yourself that you can control?
Right, and Steve, and I think the other important point is that because you own the data here, you can imagine that you could have a variety of frame vendors. So in essence, you're actually superior to online options because you can just have a whole catalog on your site as opposed to just being like a single vendor.
Correct. Yes, I agree with that also.
Yeah,
The whole
absolutely.
idea is to be ahead of the curve and be ahead of them, and so that you build a better mousetrap that they're not going to compete with anyway.
Yep.
I love how you said that. I'm going to remember that one.
And it's also a way to drive traffic back to the doctor's website, right? I mean, this doctor's websites, they're great and everything, but realistically, how frequently do people ever really come back, right? Now you'd actually give them a reason to come back, maybe 3 or 4 months later, so they could virtually try stuff on.
I love that idea. Yeah.
I love the marketing also. I mean, like you just said, I don't like a sweater, and I'll go to Macy's, or I can't go to Macy's now, but I may in the future. Anytime, November, December, January, and I could see people buying frames multiple times, and it's just a platform that makes it very easy rather than coming into the office, et cetera, et cetera. It's really a great concept.
And if anyone's interested in having a look at how it works in the virtual exhibit hall, we've got a video introducing the technology if you're interested, and we've got a couple of technical sales specialists manning the virtual booth today. If you have any questions about wavefront optimization or the Zeiss digital refraction system, or even the VisuFit we're just talking about, they'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have as well.
Fantastic. All right. Well, great. Thank you so much for this, Stephen. And Matthew, are you still there?
I'm here.
Oh, good.
Sorry, Matthew, I've been talking the whole time. I haven't let you talk. I'm sorry.
No worries. We speak the same voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Excellent. Well, I was just wondering if you wanted to throw in your 2 cents at all, or if we missed anything. I'm this is actually really exciting. I'd never seen this thing before. Obviously, I was hoping to be at Expo. That didn't happen. So it's great to be able to actually see all the stuff online.
Yeah, so we're sad. Obviously, the Vision Expo hasn't happened. But at the same time, so encouraged to see the turnout for this virtual summit you guys have put on. It's been fantastic. And if anyone is interested in looking at any of the technologies or just brushing up on what's out there, feel free to visit the virtual booth there, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, I guess I'll let you guys go and get back to it, so you can head back into the virtual booth. And we're going to actually rebroadcast this onto ODwire as well. This little clip and interview. So hopefully, even long after the summit's done, people will come back and be able to look at this. So thanks again for being here.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Stay safe. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Yeah, let me just take a look here to show everyone what we're up to, just, what we're doing today. And let me pull it on up so people can see it again. And, whoops, I'll pull it on up here. So here we go. So again, welcome to the summit. So if you haven't been, if you just tuned in, it's still kind of early here on the East Coast, on the West Coast. It's still only 10 o'clock, right? So what's been happening today, the summit has 10 hours of lectures, an exhibit hall with white papers and other educational content, and Zeiss's folks are actually standing by as well to answer questions, even about the unit that we just saw, which was super cool. I'd never seen one of those before. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, Steve?
Yes, I saw it. I believe it was the Academy meeting last year. It was a prototype, but it was going to be launched.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And so again, so you can interact with folks, and you can also interact with folks at the conference as well in the chat window. And obviously we've been doing these interviews here today. The critical thing, again, for the lectures that everybody's watching online today, those 10 talks, remember there's no COPE credit. And Paul, are you still there, or did you disappear?
Yes. Well, I'm here, almost wide awake.
I just want to make sure you're alive if you're still breathing. I hadn't heard anything.
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to remind everyone that there's no COPE credit for today's lectures. They are not COPE approved. If you need credits, again, CUIR is still around, and because of the COPE's rule changes, it's 60 credits, same as live, which is really unusual and probably won't ever happen again. This is sort of a one-time emergency. But if you go to CUIR2020.com, you can get all the details about it. We're taking the conference live again in April, where you can get up to 60 credits, which is crazy. What's been happening. So again, no COPE credit today. So I've been actually gotten now over 50 emails from people asking, how do I get COPE credit for this? And I hate to disappoint people, as you know, but COPE credit is just not available for today's lectures. It's just not the way it works. When you have conferences like this that are sponsored by a single vendor like Zeiss, it's very difficult to get those courses accredited, right? Because there needs to be independence of the content, and that's kind of a challenge sometimes at events like this. You can do it, I guess, if you have unrestricted grants and so on and so forth. The process takes a lot longer, and we wanted to get the content out there quickly this time. So, and again,
Adam, you haven't mentioned. Do you know if they're giving show discounts to doctors, or you're not privy to that?
Okay, so they are. That's a good question. Thank you for bringing that up. So they are issuing. They do have discounts. You have to go into the booth to go get them and talk to people. They say they're going to try to honor the same kinds of discounts that they were going to have at Expo East, which I guess makes sense. So definitely stop in the booth and ask about discounts. I mean, realistically, right? A lot of people are not necessarily in a buying mood right now. And everyone knows this, but if you go in and definitely ask them about specials, because they do want to extend those Expo East specials to people if they can. And that's it. So again, I'd like to thank Zeiss for this today, and Covalent Careers, who they actually helped put together a lot of the lectures, because we did this kind of in record time. So Covalent did a lot of the legwork to actually get the lectures up and running and together, so thank you for them. And by the way, Covalent was showing us what they have going on online with their website. And let's see if I can bring it up here, because they have some interesting stuff. All about the coronavirus.
Why don't you describe to some of the listeners what Covalent is all about?
Sure. So in general, they can do a better job than I can, but I'll explain. So Covalent Careers is the place for jobs in eye care. So if you're looking for a job, or if you're looking to hire an OD, this is the place to go. Sort of like, there are a lot of online job sites, but this is the one that's very specific for eye care and that you should be using if you're looking for talent, because everyone does. What they also do, though, is publish a ton of content. So I'm on their site right now, and you can see that they have a bunch of articles about eye care that they publish, very high quality stuff that's unique to their site. So take a look, you can kind of see what's up there. And now they've created, as sort of part of their content generation, this one section that's just about coronavirus, this resource center. You can see it right there, and it's constantly being updated. And as you can tell from our interview we did with the Covalent folks this morning, they're very knowledgeable about what's going on, particularly around this rescue bill that's making its way through Congress right now. And if you're looking to secure one of these loans, they have all the information about it here on their website. So definitely go there to learn more, because it sounds like this is going to be as easy as walking down to your bank and asking for a loan. They're trying to make it as easy as possible.
Yes, definitely was something that I forwarded their website to my associates to look into, to make a decision, because there's some decisions that have to be made, but hopefully they're going to simplify the whole process for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they want to just get the money out there as fast as possible, let the chips fall where they may, and then figure it out later.
But what I'm saying is Covalent is making it more efficient and making it simplified for people rather than do their own research, which is almost impossible when you start doing it online. Yeah,
so kudos to them for going out and do that. And again, we've also spoken today with the Zeiss folks themselves about their own website, and make sure I spell it right so people can see it. So med-support-now. Whoops, maybe I got that wrong because I can't type. There we go. So they have a site as well discussing everything they're trying to do to support clinicians, over the coming weeks and months. And it sounds like they have a good plan in place, both for the sort of acute phase of what we're going through as well as the long term. And they're giving away a ton of breath shields. Apparently, they've had 5,000 so far. And they're working with Covalent to get those out, which is probably a very useful thing should you decide to keep your office open right now. And I'm not sure how many people actually are. So I know at least out here in Oregon, people are keeping their offices open just for emergencies. But as Angelo, who we spoke with earlier, Angelo Rego, he mentioned that this is very much an unevenly distributed problem across the country. There are regions like us out here on the West Coast where it's bad. and we have shelter-in-place orders and we can't move. And then there are other places where they may not be impacted. And we see this on ODwire all the time where people are like, what's the big deal? All right. You have some people in the Midwest who are like, I don't understand. What's the big deal? Nothing's happening here. And they don't seem to understand just how bad it's gotten for a lot of other regions.
And there's not an assurity that it's not going to go there. It just means they might have been late to the game because of the way people move about the country and spread it, or they might not be affected, but we just don't know.
Yeah, we just don't know what's going to happen. So, yeah. All right. Well, I guess, in terms of our live stream today, that's it for the interviews. Paul, did you have anything insightful to say, or are you just sleeping again?
No, I'm wide awake. I think, what will you be replaying while you're going to close down, or you're going to put back the museum piece?
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, I want to stay here just for a few more minutes and just sort of, see what's going on. Again, the courses are going to be winding down very soon for the day. Tomorrow, actually, we could just talk about a little bit about what's happening tomorrow. So, because again, this is a 2-day long conference, not one. So if we pull up the website here, I can show everybody what's happening tomorrow. So let me pull this up for everybody. Okay, so tomorrow, and by the way, the ones that just came up now, those lectures are going to be on demand almost immediately if they're not there already from earlier in the morning. So you can log in anytime tonight if you want and actually start watch the older lectures. So tomorrow, we have a few lectures, macular OCT interpretation. And in fact, David, who Letter is giving the talk tomorrow, he's done these things in the past, and his talks are incredibly popular. Thousands and thousands and thousands of views on ODwire when we put the archives up. So he's a really good speaker and really fun to listen to, so definitely check him out. Ultra Wide Field 2.0, again, we're going to be talking all about the Claris device and sort of the incredible pictures that it takes and how far out in the periphery it gets. It's a really cool device if you haven't seen it yet. Then we're going to get a disease management talk, which should be fun. And again, probably, I would imagine there's going to be a lot of OCT talk at that one with Carolyn. And retinal OCT bootcamp to sort of close things out as well. Again, talking more about OCT and its uses. So really cool stuff for tomorrow. And again, the exhibit hall will be open again tomorrow, and all of the talks will be made available on demand afterwards. So that is about it for here. And again, I just want to remind people one more time, if they're just tuning in and watching me, in terms of CE availability for all this stuff, it's challenging for us to, well, not even challenging, it's COPE is not allowing and has never allowed COPE credits for formats such as this, where it's a conference is sponsored by a single vendor. Remember that the whole idea behind ARBO and COPE is to protect the public and to have some independence of CE from vendors. So they have very specific criteria and requirements that one has to meet in order to get a lecture COPE approved. These are not today. And so again, if you email me afterwards asking, how do I get my certificate and my COPE ID number for all this, I'm going to have to send you an email that will disappoint you, undoubtedly. So I apologize for that. But I don't think we expected a turnout as big as we've had here. Like I said, I think there's about 2,000 doctors here. So it's not a surprise to me.
Be more by now.
Yeah, so it's not a surprise to me that we're getting so many requests for COPE credit, but it's just unfortunate that we can't do it here for you. And who knows what's going to happen in the future. Perhaps ARBO will evolve. I'm not one to say. But I have a feeling no matter what happens, there will still always be a structure in place for approval to try to keep some degree of independence of the content from vendor influence. This is just, what they're there to do. Probably, going forward, I would see a convergence probably of what medicine's doing with what optometry does. That seems to make the most sense, but I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't really know. So anyway, if you're looking for CE credits, the CE Wire is obviously still around and back online, so feel free to go and check that out as well.
Also, you want to do it before May 31st.
Correct. So ARBO.
The website.
Yep. Yeah. So,
CEwire2020.com.
Yep.
If you're looking for it.
Yeah. So ARBO has sort of adjusted their rules temporarily right? This is not something that's going to be permanent, allowing online CE to be taken as the same as live. It's a temporary thing that only happened because of what's going on in the country. And again, if you go to CWire 2020, there's also a link to the rule change that I put up on ODwire. We have a conversation actually about it going on. People have asked me, what does this mean for my state? Is my state going to honor this? And my answer is, I have no idea. The issue that the states are about to run into, and again, I try to explain the technical details of this to people, just because I'm forced to live this every day, submitting courses and stuff. When you take one of the CEwire classes on the 25th or 26th of April, those are going to be considered live credits. When we put those credits onto your transcript, it'll show up as live CE, not internet CE, live CE, like as if you were at Expo or SECO. That's the number that's going to be attached to your transcript. So if you're asking me, will my state honor this? I will answer you truthfully and say, I have no idea, but I also have no idea how an auditor from a state could tell the difference between the fact that you took it online versus the fact that it's live, since we're issuing a live ID for the course, right?
Yeah, and to show you the differences in state boards, we have on the one hand, North Dakota, which up until now has been very cheap about allowing state board credits. Now they're allowing this online live credits, not only for this year, but for all 3 years, going right through 2023. So the people in North Dakota can take all their CE in the next couple of months online, and it'll be good for 3 years. On the other hand, there's a state like New Mexico that is doing nothing and then just extending the time that you have to take the courses. So they're doing nothing. And then we have Florida, where we don't know what they're going to be doing until the 5th, when the state board meets. So it's very, very state board sensitive. And to be sure that you're doing the right thing, it's a good idea to contact your state board,
right,
and see what their most updated ruling is.
And in this discussion thread that we have on ODwire, we'll keep that updated. If we actually hear something definitive from each state, we'll let you know what's going on. But right now, everything is in flux, and it's really hard to know one way or the other. But again, I will say this. I mean, I don't know how the state boards...
News in Pennsylvania, I think,
yep,
became very liberal. Right?
Yeah. Pennsylvania's allowing all of it to be done online. Yep, they're going to honor this. So if you're an OD in Pennsylvania, feel free to jump on into CEwire. You could probably get just about every credit that you need for your license just by going to CEwire.
One person online asked me an interesting question. If you take the course live and you get credit for it, could you then take the same course on demand later on, because it's a different code number, and get another credit for it?
So the answer...
I said that's a little silly.
Yeah, no, but
you could ask that.
Yeah. So Steve, that's not a silly question, actually, because people have asked me that too, and the answer is, well, what's going to happen in our system, correct, because it's a different COPE number, it's considered a different course. So you will have that course listed twice on your transcript with CEwire with different numbers, and we're going to transmit both those numbers over to Arbo. So even though the course name is the same, functionally inside of both of our systems, CEwire systems and Arbo systems, those are two separate courses. So they're going to appear as separate courses on your transcript.
And they don't have to take a quiz, and one doesn't need a quiz, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're taking things live on the 25th and 26th, the quizzes are optional. Again, this was part of Arbo's ruling, in this emergency, allowing, live lectures to be given online. There's no tests involved. So if you wait to take the stuff on the 25th and 26th, you're not going to have a test at the end of those lectures. I mean, we might leave the testing mechanism in place, but you don't actually have to take the test, right, to get credit. It'll still be there, though, so you can assess whether or not you actually learned anything. But you'll get the credit whether you pass it or not. You'll get the credit. Yeah.
Through May 31st.
Through May 31st, and I'm gonna tell everyone, I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag here a little bit, that what we're planning to do, obviously we're going to be having our live session on the 25th and 26th of April. That's set in stone, but we're planning to do more live hours after that if I can manage to hurdle the speakers back together again. So if people need more live hours, we can continue giving them to those folks all the way through May 31st. But more about those plans as we get them. And people have asked me, do I have to pay again? If I sign up for CEwire in February and took the courses then, do I need to pay again? The answer is no. Your login will work all the way through October 1st. You can come in at any time. You can watch the live stuff. You can watch the on-demand stuff. Your login will work all the way through October 1st. Do not pay again. Don't do that.
No.
Just come
And
back
not only
in.
that, we even dropped the price.
Yep.
So think about that. I wonder how many other organizations are going to do that in honor of the COVID-19. The
Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah.
Most of the offering credits now online, there's a few of them we're about $3 a credit, and they are probably an order of magnitude more per credit. Yeah, almost $25, $30 a credit. So,
Yeah.
And you take one course, you don't get the quality, you don't get the amount of courses that we're offering. So I don't think it's really competitive.
I mean, we were fortunate to have everything in place to do this, right? That's how we can offer it so cheaply. If we had to do this from scratch now, it would never have happened this quickly and this cheaply. So we just happen to be very lucky. So we're hoping that, that we could keep our prices low as possible so as many people can take our credits as they can. So it was just the stars aligned for once, right?
Yep.
We've been in the wrong place so many times at the wrong time, but now finally, it happened.
I guess we're all in the right place, home.
Yeah. All right, so I guess that's really it for now. I mean, I don't have too much more to say other than I hope everyone's enjoyed what's been going on today at the live stream. I might start the museum thing again if people want to watch it. Tomorrow, I'm hoping to be able to lure Gretchen back here on the live stream. Sometimes it's hard to get people to come back and talk, and also Ben Chudner about private equity, because I'm really curious to hear what he has to say.
Speaking of that, anyone else, I put it on ODwire. If you want your 15 minutes of fame and chat with us, contact me, and we'll give you how you can do it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even, you say facetiously 15 minutes of fame, but I think it's also more about just getting your voice heard, right? I mean, I think at a time like this, it would be nice to have more people call in. We have a conference line here. As you heard, we can handle 15 or 20 people at once. So if you want to come on in and talk to us, this would be fun. Feel free.
And more than that, you're home. You have time. How about posting on ODwire? We still have the same 20 people doing most of the talking.
Yeah, well,
we have 24,000.
Yeah. Yep. And certainly we've had an influx of people today who have registered, and hopefully, Paul, you'll get around to verifying all of them as soon as we get off the call so they can see what's going on.
Adam doesn't know this, but the influx was so great that our system couldn't handle it.
What?
So people that are from A through about N are being approved now, and then as they're approved, people from N to Z will be approved. So if it takes another hour or so to approve you, don't worry about it. We see that you've applied, and
let me make something very clear here, Paul. It's not that the system can't handle it; it's that you can't handle it. The software is fine. It's the human
application.
It is
It's not me. It's application just stopped at a certain level.
No, they're there. I see them right there. There's 50 of them.
Okay.
It's what they call in the business PEBCAC. Problems exist between what the keyboard and the chair. So
okay.
I see it right here. But you know what? I'll actually help you out because there are so many of them. I'll go in as soon as we're off the live stream here, and I'll help you out with that because.
You've worked enough. I have time.
This is a huge. Well, I want people to get in as fast as they can, so I'll work on it as well. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it is a big influx. We're not used to that. I mean, it's taken us how many years to get to 23,000, and then all of a sudden, getting so many people in a day. So it's pretty cool.
I'm curious how it happened. Just because they went to the courses, I assume.
Yeah. Yep. It's yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, I guess that's about it. What I'll leave people with here today, I suppose, is I'll put on the Contact Lens Museum again, just because I thought it was really fun. Again, so for those who don't know, there is actually a museum of contact lenses, and to some that may sound like torture, it may sound like the most boring thing you've ever heard, but I have a feeling for people who are watching here today, you will find this very, very interesting. Whoever thought that there would be a museum dedicated to this that has, sort of contact lenses through history right from the beginning. It's amazing the kind of stuff they had there, all the way up to Paul's diplomas. So.
and you'll see me live, and I saw me live, and I said, boy, I'm going to have to go on a diet. It didn't work.
Well,
I'm trapped in a house now, and it's worse than ever.
Oh, I know.
I've never seen something in papyrus before.
All right, so we'll leave you with this, and then tomorrow we'll pick it up again. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific. So thanks so much for being here, guys, and we'll talk tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Okay. See you tomorrow.
Pat, would you tell us how you came about this idea? What prompted you and Craig to start a collection?
Well, like most collections, you start collecting things one at a time, and then one day you wake up and you find you've got a museum sitting in your home, in closets, garages, and we found ourselves in that situation, and then decided that we were just going to open up a contact lens museum.
How long did it take you to curate the collection in here?
A long time, and that's an ongoing endeavor. Trying to do something of this magnitude while you're working full time and everything else, got full curriculum, and back there it's been very busy, but as you can see, it's just such a joy. It just brings so many smiles to so many faces when you bring older practitioners through here, because
another relic in.
Yeah, right, really, it's so true.
Why don't you involve me? I have to get a few more years.
Yeah, that's right. We'll put you in the chair.
There you go.
That won't be creepy at all.
No, it won't be creepy at all. But no, you're so right. It's just so many memories then come back to all of us that were touched by contact lenses. It's when you think about how contact lenses have changed so many people's lives and changed their lives. All those keratoconus patients, irregular cornea patients. It's humbling, to be a part of, having this history. So we felt that,
One of the younger patients, where do you get your lenses? You're 9 years old?
9 years old, yeah.
So
Yeah.
Probably one of the younger contact lens wearers.
Yeah, they're in so many millions of people's lives have been changed so much with these.
Now, if practitioners have anything lying around their basements or garages or the back room of their practices, would you be interested in hearing from them?
Yes, we'd be very interested. That's where we pick up a lot of these relics. Every practitioner, literally everyone out there, has one or two items that have been given to them by an elderly patient, or they took over a practice that had been established back in the 30s or 40s. And somewhere in their archives are these treasures, that they've not known what to do with them. They hold on to them because they don't take up a lot of space, but they don't know they know they can't throw it out.
Right, of course not.
But they're looking for a place to send it. This is the place. This is the place to send it. So there, it can be archived, taken care of properly. Craig and I have spent, hours and hours learning about curating an optical museum like this. There's a lot that goes into it. We had to then apply for a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 with the government. We got that, so we're official.
So not only are you accepting items to be displayed here, you're accepting financial contributions to support the museum.
Yeah, very much so. This has been totally funded through gifts and so on, and by Craig and myself.
Oh, that's it. That's a good charity for next year.
That
Absolutely.
is, it really is. It's a lovely charity for individuals in the eye care profession that want to see, you know, the history of contact lenses preserved. So you can see here we encourage donations, and so we love it. You know, when people can, when they win the lottery, you know, send us some of that, and so we have fun. But it's, we get, believe it or not, our biggest support from patients. So they feel this incredible emotional, you know, tie to these lenses.
Sure.
Now this is actually just part of the collection. A lot of it still is in storage right now. We need a bigger facility. When we opened this up in July, we opened it up with the knowledge that we've already outgrown it.
It's a good problem to have.
Good problem to have. And so we're just going to keep raising, you know, funds as best we can, and hope to move into a bigger facility as time goes on. And then this is, like I said, part of the collection. The other collection I'm going to show you is the collection of antique glasses, spectacle lenses, probably one of the finest in North America right now, and that's across the street at the school. It's this has been just a passion for Craig and I, you know, this collecting. And fortunately, we have wives that understand the insanity, because that's what it is. It's insane to be doing this. But you know, Craig and I have been blessed so much, like you have, like we all have, by the eye care industry. That
Very much so.
yeah, that it's just been a humbling experience to be a part of it. So this is our payback, or this is our legacy that we'll leave, you know. So.
And it's a beautiful one.
It's a start. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful start, and so we're real happy, very, very happy with it all.
Excellent.
So many, many years ago, as you can imagine, it's really myself and Craig Norman who kind of put this all together. The story begins over here. I'll sort of walk you through. This is kind of the evolution of contact lenses. All of these lenses here are made of glass. And so these were the earliest contact lenses in Germany and Zeiss. So they were the three making glass scleral lenses at the time.
When did Oberg come in?
Oberg came in the 1940s. How do you know that name?
I used to live with him.
Oh my. I was just reading a book this morning, his textbook from 1945 on contact lenses. It's really one of the earliest.
Yeah.
And that is, what a coincidence.
Oh, yeah.
So
Are these companies related? It's
no,
Muller Sohn
they were
and Muller
different-
Welt?
No, they were different families.
Okay.
Yeah, they had no relation. And so these, like I said, it's the largest collection of glass contact lenses in the world. So it's they're hard to find, very rare, wonderful to feel because they're incredibly heavy.
Can I touch one?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can touch the one that is yours. Craig and I wanted you to have this. This is a glass
Really?
scleral lens.
Wow.
And it's all the contributions you've made to the industry. You deserve that.
Oh, you are so kind. Thank you.
Yeah, it's,
Look at this
it's
thing.
kind of neat to have. You can see kind of how rough the optics were.
Very rough.
And, but, you know, they got better with time. That's a real early one.
Would you like to
What
see?
year?
This would have been probably early 1900s, so between 1900 and 1910. But you could feel how smooth
Yeah.
the glass
The workmanship was wonderful.
But yeah, it's that's definitely one we wanted you to have.
That's very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This would be a real challenge to apply and to remove.
Yeah, it really is because of the size. These were about 22 to 24 millimeters in diameter, so they were pretty big.
And then I see that they're fenestrated as
Some
well.
of them were, and that's kind of unique, the number of them that were fenestrated. You can imagine drilling a hole in glass can be a little bit challenging.
A lot of breakage.
Yeah, but I'm always surprised when I'm going through the lenses, the number of them that have actually been fenestrated.
And that would have been a challenge as well, not only drilling the hole, but making sure that the edges are smooth enough.
Oh,
Because
yes.
that would have been quite painful had you applied a fenestrated
Yeah.
lens that wasn't smooth.
But then you look at these Zeiss lenses, the optics are absolutely perfect and they're incredibly thin. And I always wonder how many of those broke in the eye. You know, it wouldn't take much trauma
That would have been
to
a
shatter
really big problem.
those, yeah. But that was unique of the Zeiss lenses at the time. They were incredibly thin.
Do you know who made this one, the one that you gave me?
That one, yes, I do. That one was from the Mueller-Weld company.
Wow.
Yeah, that one.
Look
from
at these.
there.
And then
So
those are the molds right there?
Those are the molds.
So that is
and let
brass,
me,
and
Let me
then
take you through how, let's
looks like a
say
shell.
it's 1920 and I'm gonna fit you with a contact lens. It would all begin over here.
May I sit in the chair?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You sit in the chair again. That's where I sit. You know, I get comfortable in here.
Gretchen's gonna get
And now the molding process began by just simply mixing this compound. It's called moldite. And we would mix it in one of these containers. And then it would be placed into a syringe. And this mold then would be placed onto the eye and the moldite compound injected through here. And then it would take a perfect mold of the anterior segment. So the molding compound would harden in about 90 seconds. So you had to be real efficient with your time. You had to load this, inject it, and be pretty efficient.
So you have to do that on a board exam, right?
Absolutely. 1950s.
Jeez.
And then what happened next was when you had that beautiful mold, you would mix this next compound called cast stone. And that cast stone then was just like a concrete, but incredibly fine, powdery concrete. And then you would let it harden, and then you would have this beautiful impression of the eye. Now, back in the day, before World War II, a second mold would have to be made of brass. And the reason for that is that when the lens was actually turned into a contact lens, it was made of glass, and the glass would just simply, the heat of the glass would destroy the moldite, so it had to be turned into a brass mold. Then it was taken over here, and this is probably the highlight of the museum, and the fact that we have the only remaining glass contact lens making apparatus in the world. This is
Really?
it. This is the only one left.
Does it work? If you
It
wanted
works.
to create a lens,
Oh,
you
yeah,
could?
yeah, we've had it fired up, and you could see we've destroyed part of the table from the firing it up, and it makes a lot of pops and noises. And now there was this vise was on the stand. We don't know what its function was, but it must have had some function. The problem with this instrument is that nowhere can we find anything written on how to manufacture the contact lens or how they were manufactured. So we're having to piece it together little by little. Now, the
If I push this, is something gonna happen?
yeah,
Oh,
push it.
Push it?
Yeah, push both of them. This one.
Oh my
And
God.
it still works. That's the amazing thing. We fired up these motors, and they were still working.
This is incredible.
So, now, the way it worked was you attach the mold, the brass mold of the shape of the eye here. Top two, I think. Perfect. Now, that bottom, yeah, no, you got it. You got them both. Good. And what would happen is you had natural gas and oxygen that were mixed together. Those were, it wasn't propane. Propane hadn't been invented yet, so they actually used natural gas back in that day. And so the gases were then mixed up here to the appropriate concentration, and these valves controlled the amount of oxygen versus the amount of natural gas.
It looks like it's a very non-precise process.
Exactly, very non-precise. Then they had these 2x2 wafers of glass that were set right here. And then this was just simply brought around once the glass had been molten, and this just brought down and an impression made of the contact lens.
And that's the mold right there.
That's the mold
So you would
of the
swap
eye.
that out depending upon the
Yeah.
patient you're creating this for.
And then in this little container, when I got the instrument, it was just filled up to about here with asbestos.
Oh, excellent.
So that made it all complete. So then you would bring it back here, drop this mold, and because it was flaming hot from being in contact with the glass, and it would fall into the asbestos where it would be cooled. And now with these little tools here, the residual glass would be broken away. And then you saw over here how the edges were rounded, and then the power placed on the front of the lens with this. Now, the only thing we can think of here is that this was actually operated by hand to oscillate the application of the power on the front side of the lens. That's all we can actually kind of surmise. We don't know how else it was driven. And but everything came with the unit. It was intact. And it's actually from, of all places, Perth, Australia.
Don Ezekiel.
Yeah, Don Ezekiel.
And if anybody would have something like this, it would be him.
It'd be him. And you'll see as you go through the museum, many of the pieces are from Don's collection. And that was probably the largest in the world. And he gave it all to us. So we're really super fortunate to have that.
And he got his basement back.
I'm sorry?
He got his basement back.
Yes, he had his garage. He had it in his laboratory, But when he sold the laboratory, it moved into his garage. So he was kind of grateful, but again, sad to see it all go away. And, but to have the only one remaining, now this is for this.
A mechanical tool then, nothing to do with creating the contact lens.
No, just strictly for changing out the gas.
If you wanted to, is there gas in there? Could you make one?
No, we keep the live ones in my garage at home, but these are actually empty. And
So you have filled ones if you wanted to?
yes.
I mean, I don't know that I'd put
Oh,
asbestos there, but you
sure.
could create
yeah,
a glass
yeah.
lens?
We're the only ones in the world that can make glass contact lenses if you need one.
Have you tried it?
Oh, yeah, we've tried it, and it's incredible. Just, there's a lot of experimentation, getting the temperature right, getting just the exact amount of natural gas and the exact amount of oxygen. But you could see that it would be very easy to accomplish. Now, when PMMA came along, things changed rather dramatically, because now it was possible to just simply use the mold itself rather than turning it into a brass mold. And what was used at that time then were these PMMA wafers.
That's actual PMMA?
Yeah.
I thought it was cardboard.
No, it has this protective coating on it, and you just peel this away, and then there's this beautiful piece of acrylic plastic.
Wow.
For scleral lenses.
That's really cool.
Very cool. And now, it didn't take any temperature at all to melt that. That was not like melting glass. So I think we even have one here that might be, yeah, there we go.
Oh, so that's it.
That's it.
So Darren asked the question, when you were in school, did you ever see anything like this?
Yes, well, with the way it worked in school, our contact lens course was one person with keratoconus that was handed down from class to class. And we had it was at Columbia University, and we had Isidore Finkelstein was the professor, a very bright guy, but that was it. And he had this one guy, and every time they had to do something to wash the lens or something, there was no sink. The Fink used to walk in to the bathroom and wash it and try it on. And this guy never succeeded, but he kept coming back from class to class.
Oh.
And that was the contact lens course in the 50s.
Oh my gosh. That's so interesting you mentioned that name. I read his name for the first time last night. Finkelstein from Columbia University. And the reason I came across it, I was doing a story, as I'll show you down here, on Dennis England, who helped invent the first corneal contact lens. But I came across an article written by Hank Knoll from Bosch & Lowe on this gentleman from Columbia University. And it was the first time I had seen his name, and so it was really
Yeah, so that was the
kind of neat.
that was the contact lens course.
Oh my gosh.
Period.
That's
End
so
of story,
cool.
and then whatever you learn happened afterwards.
Yeah.
It happened afterwards. But the academy required, in order to become a diplomate, you had to be able to fit a scleral lens and using moldite. And what happened, is basically we smuggled in some anesthetic, because there's no way you can put that shit in your eye.
Yeah, no kidding. And say, stay still now. Because you can imagine if the patient's eye was moving during the molding process, you have a pretty bad mold.
Yeah, I mean, so.
What year did you earn your diploma?
In 1965, I think.
And so that was
67,
being required at that time?
Yeah, it was a very large class. The word was, you better get it now because it's going to get much tougher to do. But that particular part was separated the men from the boys, because you had to learn not only to do it, but then to adjust it. And,
Yeah.
and I was always very unhandy. I figured I'd cut my hand off with the bars that they used.
Oh my,
So,
wonderful.
So we
Well,
have glass lenses.
Glass lenses and then,
in fact, we,
oh boy,
Irv Borish and I suffered.
oh my.
So here we go to PMMA sclerals.
PMMA sclerals, and you know, it was very, plastic was very slow to get involved into evolve into the contact lens industry. It was only after World War II that plastic really did replace glass.
Yeah, that was
as
the thing
World
in the Air
War II.
Force.
Huh.
The plastic first started on airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
I see up there Ernst Abbey.
Yeah, Ernst
Does that have
Abbey.
anything to do with the Abbey value?
Yep, it sure does. That is it right there. He was the mathematician, the brains behind the Carl Zeiss Corporation, and he was a brilliant mathematician. He developed this machine right here. This was
It's like an early lensometer?
It looks like an early lensometer, but it's called a refractometer. And what it did is just measure the index of refraction of the glass. And because when they were manufacturing glass at the time, they could never control the index of refraction of it. So each piece had a different index, and so what they had to do is read the index of refraction, and then they knew what radius to put on the front to create the power.
There was a lot of math involved
There
back
was
then.
a ton of math involved back in those days. And, but he was the one who really kind of was at the forefront of that.
Now I see back here there are corneal lenses as well as scleral lenses.
Yeah, it's just like CDs and VHSs. You know, there's that time in space where the two cross over, and this was really it. In the 1950s, it was unsure which of the two modalities was going to really take over. Was it going to stay scleral or was it going to go corneal? And so you see a number of these fun sets that have actually both in them. Now here's the Theo Olbrich sets out of New York. The one in the back was the original Theo Olbrich scleral lens set, and then the one in the front is one of the later sets.
I like these glasses down here. The world of contact lenses. That is really cool.
Bizarre.
So WJ made them.
Well, Newton Wesley was the man responsible for kind of bringing contact lenses into the mainstream. So in the early 1960s, he marketed everything to get contact lenses out to the masses.
God bless him.
Yep, and he appeared on the Steve Allen show, and he was just this incredible kind of showman, but yet incredibly ethical. And
He was keratoconic.
Yeah, that's correct.
Keratoconus and,
Do you have any stories?
well, yeah, he had a partner, George Jessen,
Yeah.
and George was a glad-hander type of salesperson, and Newton was the front guy with the research type of thing.
Right.
And they did everything, and they not only market glasses, but I remember they used to hand out ties.
Oh, I've got
Christmas,
one.
it says contact lenses on it.
Yes, it's so funny you should mention that. You're the only one I've ever known right there
hilarious.
from the Newton Wesley
yeah.
company, and but he was just this incredible marketer.
Yes.
And it was just so cool what he was able to do.
That's good. Somebody needs to get the word out.
Well, you know, and little known fact, it was Newton Wesley who founded Pacific University College of Optometry.
Is that right?
I didn't know that.
Yes, it's a rather kind of long and sometimes sad story because he founded it, but then had to give it up and sell it because of World War II and the internment camp. So his two sons and his wife ended up in an internment camp throughout the course of World War II. And it was here in Portland where the internment camp was. And Roy Wesley, his son, is still alive, and he is on our board of directors of the museum because he's this incredible historian of that era of the internment camps and all the kind of injustices done back then. So kind of a fun story to just hear him talk about.
Oh, I bet.
About his life growing up as a child in the camp.
Right.
So, and then over here, we have a couple other items. One is the Micon. This was the first commercially available contact lens solution that went into the back of a scleral contact lens.
What is Micon?
And, you know, it's, I'm not sure, I think it's a sodium bicarbonate system. What does it say there? I looked it up.
2%
there we
sodium.
go.
You were
Yeah,
right.
I was. Sodium bicarbonate solution.
So where did the name Micon come from?
Now, that I don't know. It was manufactured by House of Vision in Chicago.
House of Vision.
And House of Vision, yes.
It sounds like a sketchy place.
It does. It's like a haunted place. Now, next to it here is another one of those Wesley Jessen things. This was a research lens. And patients were losing their lenses pretty easily when they switched to corneal. So what they did is they impregnated the contact lens with little graphite particles. And then you would just pick it up with a magnet or find it.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so it was a magnetic
contact
lens, and that's what it's actually stuck to, is the magnet right there.
Oh my
Did
gosh.
that affect vision by having that into the plastic?
It's sort of like putting fenestrations in the lens. They never really affected acuity very much, and just a clever idea. So, but they never marketed it or anything, but it's just kind of cool to have
A
one
magnetic
of their,
lens.
Wow.
Some patients may
Magnetic.
like to have that option available to them.
Oh gosh, I thought it was so clever, you know, but it just shows you, you know, you've got a problem, you know, this is how we're gonna fix it.
Who was the optician that brought I forgot his name, that made the corneal lens popular? Remember his
Oh, Kevin Toohey?
Toohey, yeah.
Yes,
The Toohey lens.
Kevin
That was
Toohey.
the first one.
We've got some of his early things over here as we evolve from.
It took lids of steel to adapt to those.
That's for sure. Then we went from the sclerals into the.
We have a TUI contact lens fitting record back there.
Yes. Now that's kind of interesting. That's
Robert
Ryan. Now,
Is that a HIPAA violation, Pat?
Yeah, it's a definite HIPAA violation. Now, he was a famous actor.
Oh, sure.
Back in the 50s. And
another famous person was Ronald Reagan.
Ronald
He was
Reagan.
highly myopic.
Yep.
He wore contact lenses.
Wore contact lenses. So we have some pretty interesting things.
Oh, so here's the little scandal, I guess, with Dennis England. He applied for the first U.S. patent.
In 1945, I've got the original patent. Craig, I've got a Xerox copy, but Craig has contacted the patent office, and we're going to see if we can get the original patent, that patent application.
And Kevin Toohey preceded him.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
yeah,
sorry.
Followed.
Okay.
He followed him by 2 years, 1 month. Was 2 years later, Kevin Toohey took out his patent, or applied for his patent.
That was in the 50s, I think.
Yeah, 1950.
And then Bill Feinblum also got involved with scleral lenses.
Yeah, and there's Bill's diagnostic set.
Yeah,
You'll notice those green lenses there, and apparently someone told me that those were actually developed for treatment of an nystagmus. Now,
Did it work?
That I have no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know why it would work.
Again, I wish Bill was still alive, and
You know,
I've got
there's a Yiddish
questions.
expression, it worked like a Teutenbankes, like a leech on a dead person.
Yeah.
So did you know Feinblum?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, we used to work
He
together.
was the man.
He was, Bill, what happened towards the end, he couldn't handle the contact lenses, so he referred to us. But he was a tremendous promoter, and his main specialty was low vision.
Yeah.
And he was able to get his face on Life magazine.
Yeah.
And he ended up having a tremendous practice on Park Avenue. And again, the low vision didn't work. But but people kept coming in.
I've got that Life magazine with that's his story, the Feinblum story. It's actually one of the really earliest
He knew how to promote.
publications. Yeah.
He was, well, actually, there's a direct link between Bill promoting and me. Afterwards,
Oh, my.
so I shouldn't knock him.
This machine, the Compumatic.
Yeah, it's the only one
computer?
I've ever seen. Again, another WJ product from the 1960s, and you turn those dials, and it would you would build your contact lens. Each one of those dials put on a different radius of curvature.
Wow.
So you design both the anterior and posterior surface of the lens with that little, they call it computer, but it's just roller device. And a very, very cool thing, but.
Did you ever use one?
No, never used one. It's the only one I've ever seen.
Yeah, those tinted lenses are also very interesting.
Yeah, those are from
Change your-
England.
Change your
Yeah,
eye color.
yeah,
Remember,
Caprice
we
PMMA
had looked
lenses.
at- Oh, God. Somebody needed his eye color changed.
Yeah.
Forgot his name already.
Well, I recognize something down
George
there.
Siegel,
Oh,
the actor, yeah. So
George
he came in, you know,
Siegel.
he was young and he had to play an Arab. He had blue eyes. So he had to play an Arab in some sort of film he was in. So Columbia Pictures sent him in. He was in New York in those days. So we had to give him one of those lenses. So I gave him the lenses and I gave him a bottle of anesthetic. When he was shooting, because he suffered with those. They were thick and they were terrible.
Oh,
So he had to have dark eyes for the shoot.
Did you see the movie afterward?
No.
No?
Maybe it didn't even come out, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
Who knows, many of
Maybe
them
don't
didn't.
make it.
I see a bottle of Playa-Gel down there. I haven't
Yeah.
heard
Oh my gosh.
that name in a long time.
Yes, Playa-Gel, and the ones behind it, the yellow ones are called LC65. They were big items back in the 60s for PMMA.
And what happened in the 50s and early 60s, these lenses were very thick. And somebody came up with the idea of what if we fenestrate them? And they put 4 little holes in, and they called it the vent-air contact lens.
Yeah.
So vent-air, and then became a marketer for the thing. They did a tremendous amount of advertising, and they ended up with offices all over the country.
Wow.
Vent-air was one of them. There was one other company from Chicago that also.
Yeah,
stores.
there was a Spirovent,
Spirovent had one.
and.
You just happen to have some of it right here.
Yes, yes. Here's an original TUI brochure. And let's see, I don't know if I have my Ventair out there.
See,
No,
and
I
then
guess I
after
don't.
that, the lenses were so thick that the people were terribly uncomfortable, and that's when I went into practice. And Ted, my partner, worked for Ventair down the street,
Oh, boy.
and he sent people over to
Yeah.
me. And then we came up with the bright idea, says, hey, if they're so uncomfortable with thick, why don't we make a thinner lens?
Oh, boy.
So we formed a company called Micro Thin Contact Lenses, and we got one Orthodox Jew to work in Brooklyn in a lab,
Uh-huh.
and he was the micro thin maven. He was the one that did it, and we had a thinner lens, and because we had a thinner lens, we were able to succeed where Ventair failed. So we built up a very large PMMA practice in those years.
How did Ventair feel about Ted?
They didn't know he worked for us, and then after that, he left there because the practice got big enough that we were able to.
Now, over in this cabinet is the early evolution of soft lenses. Soft lenses were developed by that gentleman there, Otto Wichterle, in Prague, Czechoslovakia. He started working on the material in the early 1960s. He actually started producing contact lenses in 1966, and those were the first soft lenses. They were called SPOFA, S-P-O-F-A, SPOFA lenses. Right there, right in front of you, is the first soft contact lens brochure ever produced. That was in 1965. These lenses here really do represent the first key mount for first soft contact lenses. I've got one hydrated there. The rest are stored dry.
Wow.
Very kind of neat to have those as part of the collection. These were the original SPOFA cases from 1966. And about the same time, a company in upstate New York and Toronto started this Bionite company, which was a Griffin lens.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that was the high water content lens. It had about a 55% water, but you see it goes back to that same time frame as the Otto Wichterle lenses.
Oh, and there it says they were purchased by AO.
Yep.
And then became SoftCon.
Yep, and then became SoftCon, exactly.
And then B&L marketed them very differently. They had salespeople, and the first sales manager insisted that all their salespeople come in dark suits. So they were very, very formal,
very unique,
very businesslike.
Yeah.
With the Bausch & Lomb lens.
Oh,
And now we're into the salt tablets and heat units.
Salt tablets and then heat units. This is the
scepter unit.
Range of the scepter units. The first one you see right here was the original Bausch & Lomb one, 1971. The FDA had no idea on how to disinfect these soft contact lenses, so this is what Bausch & Lomb came up with. If you look kind of closely, that heater unit there was actually a baby bottle warmer. They purchased them from Gerber Baby Food Company and then modified the top lid to hold a contact lens case. So you filled that up. You remember the distilled water that you put in there and push a button.
And actually, it was a marvelous way to sterilize lenses because after that, the cold sterilization came in, but unfortunately, they put thimerosal into the solution.
And that was this one right here. This was the first.
And the red eyes started.
Red eyes started big time. So you'll love these names here, Paul. The Normal, Flexol, and Preflex. That will resonate with you. Those are just so cool.
Alcon Swirl Cleaner.
Yes.
That sounds like toilet cleaner.
Well, it does sound like
Sorry,
it.
Alcon.
The scepter unit was something that the patients had individually. However, the office had very large units.
Right.
So you could
No, right
sterilize
down
the
here.
lenses, there they are.
I remember
And
those glass vials, cutting my
And that
fingers on them.
particular one ended up with a short circuit over a weekend, and our office burned down.
Oh, no.
Boy,
The staff
yeah.
forgot to turn it off before they left.
They lost
So
many
we had
an
a
office
fire.
with that unit.
Wow.
And,
That was when you met me at the door, said, Dad, you can sleep late tomorrow, and I came back from the lecture.
so,
Aquaflame.
you know, this was, you'll notice that a lot of different cleaning systems were developed because at the time, we had to make soft lenses last a year.
Right.
They were replaced on a yearly basis, so a lot of heroic things were developed to try to extend the length of time.
Matter of fact, we had one scheme. We met the developer, a woman who developed the contraceptive sponge. You remember Seinfeld Spongeworthy?
Right.
It was a contraceptive sponge.
I remember that.
And it was FDA approved, and it had the ability that if you would rub a contact lens on it, you could clean it. And we say, this is what we're gonna do.
So how did somebody come up with that concept that this is a contraceptive sponge, I'm gonna put my contact lens on there? I mean, where did that come from?
Say, what?
I mean, who would think of that?
So,
And the chemicals, because it was a spermicide,
Yeah,
right? So, I mean, wonder what the chemicals would do to the
we
lens.
started dealing with this crazy woman who had some company in Europe and Germany, and it cost us at least 6 figures by the time we figured out it's not going to work, and then she conned us, and so that another scheme.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear that that
You talk about
was,
my West Indian land, that was even worse.
but, so that actually, nobody ever really did that, so she
No,
took
we
you for a
didn't.
ride, okay, I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear that.
absolutely.
I mean, not that you were taken for a
No,
ride,
no,
I'm not
I-
glad, but that nobody
I
was
have been
cleaning their
taken for many
lenses on a
rides.
contraceptive
That was
sponge.
only,
weren't
that was
sponge-worthy.
that was only one of the many rides.
I see CSI lenses back there, and now
Yes.
what else did I see?
Yeah.
Lens Plus, now we're getting into things that I remember.
Yeah.
Those terrible vials that you cut your hand on.
Yeah,
Yep.
and do you have there it is,
The crimper.
the
the
crimper,
crimper.
I remember those things, and those
Oh,
very
yes.
light, the caps.
Caps that
They were light, and then you
aluminum.
put it on, and then when you
Yeah.
try to pull it off,
Yep, there goes your finger.
yep.
And so it's just so much fun. Then lenses that never made it, the 3M lens called the Advent lens, lasted in the marketplace just a few months, and it was a pure fluorocarbon contact lens, very oxygen permeable. They teamed up with Allergan to promote that lens, but it never made it. The Epicon was another one that never quite made it in the marketplace. And then the Nike Maxite
I
down
remember that.
here.
You have any so soft in there?
Silsoft is right here.
Yep.
Another one that worked beautifully, 100% oxygen permeable, but
Yeah.
way too thick. So
Yeah.
it was terribly
And so
uncomfortable.
hard to remove
Yes.
too. It was that rubbery
Yeah,
thing.
it was Dow Corning owned it.
Yep,
and they
Dow
gave-
Corning, way to go. Man,
Can I
this
ask
has
Joe-
gotta be weird for you.
Yeah.
All these things
I
coming
live-
back and
Yep.
just, you wonder where all that garbage is being stored. You know, I always ask myself, where is
Well, are you
it being
kidding? I
stored?
mean, I've got these Gilbert and Sullivan operettas up here that.
Oh, my.
You know,
Oh,
so-
that's, yeah.
But I can't remember what happened to them yesterday.
Yeah, me either. That's the truth.
Oh, you've got a DMV in there,
Yeah, we do, and.
and it looks like you have a designer case.
Yeah, we do.
There was a short period where Revlon bought out one of these companies.
Hydrocurve.
Bought out Hydrocurve.
Fort Barnes
And they
High.
got themselves a really serious PR firm in New York, and they sent me around the country to talk about their particular product. They were interested in tinted lenses in those days and changing eye color. And but they got me on morning shows all over the place by using a great PR firm.
And that's when you did Phil Donahue.
You know, Phil Donahue came through that as well.
These you'll remember. Now these were
I wear
called
contact lenses.
medical alert bracelets, and they were developed for PMMA lens wearers who had been involved in auto accidents and maybe in a coma, because what was happening is people were wearing PMMA contact lenses. They'd be in a 2-week coma. They'd finally look at their eyes and find a huge ulcer sitting there. So these medical alert bracelets made everyone aware of the fact that they were wearing contact lenses. And then these old Shiatz tonometers, you'll remember those.
Yes.
Both you and I were trained on those back in the day. And,
Wow.
really beautiful instruments, and obviously replaced by applanation tonometry. And so...
You know what you need? Oh, you do have it over there. I see, you need I was looking at this trial lens set. You need
Oh,
a
yeah.
lens cabinet.
Oh, yes.
I have a friend at one of the practices where I worked, and she had one of those old, it was a big piece of furniture with the lens. It was beautiful. I wanted it.
Oh, no, I wanted those are, they sell for a lot of money now,
Yeah.
as you can imagine, because they are just beautiful. And read this Barbie doll
I
thing.
saw that. Why does it say looking for Ken?
Yeah, I just put that in there.
It's a little sexist,
yeah,
Patrick.
a little bit, but
Oh, wait, on loan from the Craig Norman Barbie doll collection?
Yeah.
That's totally awesome.
yeah.
We need to find out what other Barbie dolls Craig has in his collection.
Yeah, we really don't know.
And you've got eclipse glasses in
Yeah,
there.
it's part of our history. 2017.
That was really interesting, that we had done a story about how to protect your eyes during an eclipse. And there was so much interest drawn during that very short window of time of people talking about that and vision and blindness and looking at the sun. So it was a great news hook and great PR for all of eye care.
It was a wonderful opportunity for eye care to tell the story. And then we have a collection of eye cups there, and this was kind of the original treatment for blepharitis. And I don't know why it went out of vogue, because it's still perhaps one of the better treatments for cleaning the lids and lashes, and very popular in the 30s and 40s. As you can see, a lot of different styles came out. And
Well, maybe it will come back into vogue, because neti pots are coming back into vogue.
Yeah,
Similar concept.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, that looks like patent medicine, though. What is that, McElroy's lotion? What is that?
Some of these were mixtures that you would put into the eye cup, and not sure what some of these actually had within them, but you'll see in the forefront the bicarbonate of soda tablets. That's what was usually used.
Baking soda?
Yeah. And
This is really cool. And I see some instrumentation up here too.
It starts over
Placido
here.
discs.
These are all from the early 1900s. These are all keratometers, ophthalmometers.
They look like satellite dishes of today.
They
There were
do.
still some in my school.
Yeah,
Those-
just like that. And,
Yeah, that's the one where we,
yeah.
to position, you had to get the axis on.
Yep, and they rotate, and I swear that they could still be used today. They're the electronics would just have to be redone, but other than that, they're fully functional.
Yeah, there's the old slit lamps too.
Yeah, the old slit lamps, and you really realize that very little has changed in the optics of eye care. Optics are just such a fundamental thing.
So this says circa unknown for this clock, and I'm guessing 60s.
Yeah, you know, some of this stuff I'm still trying to track down, you know. I need to get out to Bosch and Lohm. So much of the history of optics in this country originated there, and I've been in contact with their curator there, and a lovely person, lovely woman.
American Optical still do?
You know, that's the other one. American Optical in Massachusetts, are they still around? That I am not sure of. And if they're still around, AO was a big, big company. And then back here, we have some interesting things. One, this is our little humble library. What we're trying to do is also get all of the books ever written on contact lenses, and any articles, brochures, anything related to contact lenses, we're trying to archive and save as well.
Does the AOA library have?
You know, I'm surprised the AOA does not have a very complete collection. I've always been kind of a little taken back by the fact that they haven't taken their kind of the history of optometry a bit more serious. And
in Indiana also, they have the Historical Society.
Oh yeah.
They should have.
Yes, and so we need to get involved with all of those folks. Now this, here's a company you'll remember, Milton Roy company. Here's, it's American Optical, and this was the original inventory system for fitting contact lenses. And they came in two diameters, 8.2 and 8.7 diameter lenses, all PMMA. And then, but still a fairly complete set. So not many of those.
Your mother wore them.
Really?
She wore PMA for a lot of years.
And then, of course, this is the bathroom, but of course we had to deck it out with all of this antique stuff. And so this is really quite fun. And so really anything historical related to eye care, we jump on, Craig and I. This is something you might remember too, the old Leslie Jessen photo periscope. PEK is what it was called. And again, that was another WJ product.
And these are the projectors I used for many, many years.
I know. I know.
Sure.
See, the thing is that back in those days, that equipment never wore out.
No,
It's like these
Those
old,
chairs.
all these old Greens refractors. You know, they still are 100% functional today. The workmanship that went into all of these instruments was just unbelievable. And then the other thing that was always amazing to me is how heavy all of this stuff, because it was all made with cast iron, especially this chair. This is pure cast iron, and from the 1950s, and an old B&L keratometer.
What do you think, Dad? Do you think you could still work it?
What's that?
I bet you he could. It would come back to you.
This is a slit lamp, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not
it's
a
just
keratometer.
the
And there's the Burton lamp.
Yeah,
Used
the
to
Burton
put
lamp.
black light.
Yep.
People used to use
This one I
fluorescent.
thought was very unique. It was on a mobile stand, and you would wheel it around, and
Fluorescent in it. Lit up the lens.
whole lot.
So this is the phoropter? Look at how tiny it is.
Yeah, that was one of the real early
That's a early one.
phoropters. Now here's one of the original phoropters, these Zhang phoropters, and what you did here is you use your loose lenses and you would put them in here, and then your auxiliary lenses, the prism, would move into position, Maddox rods, all of these things. So this was the earliest of them. And then they evolved into that one there.
Wow.
So,
This had a joystick already.
yeah,
So this is a
Yeah.
newer model.
that's a newer 1950 Zeiss.
Newer.
So yeah,
Newer, yeah.
That's what I had.
1950.
As a matter of fact, most optometrists didn't use one. I remember
Yes.
when I was in the 60s, I joined the, they put me on the committee, the contact lens committee. There were very few people that limited their practice, so even though I was very young, they put me on there. And basically there was a problem because opticians in those days were the leaders in contact lens fitting, and delivery. But the optometrist said, no, they didn't like that idea. I said, well, one thing you could do is make it the state of the art that everyone has to have a slit lamp examination when they wear contact lenses. And then the AOA in their wisdom says, we can't do that because many of our members don't have a slit lamp and you'll estrange them. So not only didn't they have sinks in their exam rooms to wash their hands, they didn't have a slit lamp to examine eyes. But people survived.
Yeah, they made it somehow. Goes back. Hey, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
See you tomorrow.
You betcha. Sounds good. I love it.
So is this yours or is this the school's?
No, this is mine. Mine and Craig's. Completely. And now the story here begins actually in all places, China. China was the first country to produce spectacle lenses. And these are some of those early spectacles. Many of them made of tortoiseshell, and some made of brass. They found their way to Europe, and they think through the adventures of Marco Polo, that he actually then kind of brought back the concept. So they were introduced in the late 1200s.
So Marco Polo brought the concept of eyeglasses, spectacles, in addition to spaghetti.
To spaghetti, there you go. And both have had a big impact. And then here are some of the earliest glasses made in this country in the early 1700s. These were made by blacksmiths at the time. And so they're made of iron, but they were shaped, and these are all from the mid 1700s. So
What are wig eyeglasses?
wig eyeglasses had these little extenders on them. You'll notice the little bars, the second bar.
To stick in the wig, to stay on.
stick in the wig.
Interesting.
So they were just referred to as wig glasses. And then in the late 1700s were these models that were available.
So we're moving away from the entire round shape. We've got some rectangular shape.
Yep, we
oval.
sure do.
Interesting. So even then, we're getting into different lens shapes.
Yep. But still, the jewelers didn't get involved. And you can tell as soon as the jewelers got involved, because the frames got incredibly elaborate.
They're rimless.
Yeah,
that
they
rimless?
were rimless, but
Wow.
they were glass. They're all glass. Plastic hadn't come about until the 1920s. So very, very slow on the uptake.
Oh, and there's Franklin's bifocal.
That's an original 1700 Franklin bifocal.
Where did you find that?
Again, been collecting my entire life, and
That's incredible.
yeah, yep. The only thing that I miss about these glasses, and same thing with the contacts, you just wish they could talk.
Oh, of
And
course.
just tell us your history and tell us where you've been. Would be just so absolutely fascinating. And then what happened then, pince-nez, and then the Oxford frames, very similar. The Oxford frame used a little spring to hold the glasses on the eyes. And then it was in the 1920s that plastic first got introduced.
Tortoise.
And
Horn rim.
tortoise, and beautiful, beautiful. You know, you look at some of these from the 20s and you go, I would wear those. I mean, those are very cool. I mean, they're just incredibly cool glasses.
Wow.
And then we have the 30s, and then these were glasses that were called inventory glasses made by American Optical. The doctor would buy them in these boxes like this, and then he or she would put them together. The frames are right there, and you can see the different bridge sizes. And then the bows that went around the ear were what are called gold-filled material. What they were...
More expensive.
Yeah, and you could see these are all gold-filled as well. And
you don't have these cases locked?
No.
All right, we're going to edit that part out.
Yeah, you don't have these locked.
When did male, female glasses start?
You know, that's a good